I was kind of blown away. She'll probably give a portion of it in Spanish, is my guess. But anyway, and I'll get back to the comments here in a little bit, guys. But things that stood out to me, just the Rush thing. He pointed out a lot of the accomplishments. He was talking.
Do you want to hear the news? Do you want to hear commentary? Do you want to hear some of the best opinions and perspectives on information? Then what you need to tune to is Robert Noir of Normal America. Normal America is a play on words, but he doesn't play with you when it comes to his hard-hitting in your face, sometimes a little bit loud and gruff.
So, we need to wiretap. They left out. Oh, and he said our case is garbage. They again did the exact opposite of the truth. Again.
And other times, they're a little softer.
Charities of the groups that are sending that money. So, for example, there's been reports, and I haven't...
There's softer sides to Rob, and there's more up in your face. Which one are you going to get? Do you want to listen to somebody who's a little more abnormally smart than you? Do you wish you lived in a normal America? Well, then you need to check out Robert Noir. Normal America. Check him out today, guys. You won't be disappointed.
Hello. Thank you for being here, everyone. Alan, Benny, Raleigh, everyone else. Yeah, Alan, do you like that? SJG put that together. Jeremy, thanks for being here. Everyone else who might be watching. So, streaming on multiple platforms. This is my normal night of doing the Normal America show. So I normally start at 11 p.m. Eastern, but thought I'd start a little sooner, seeing as how everyone's fresh off the State of the Union. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here. I might take some call-ins later in the show. We'll see how it goes. But I appreciate everyone being here. So I had two things I wanted to talk about tonight. One was the Iowa caucus, and the other is the State of the Union. I'm guessing I'll spend almost all my time on the State of the Union. So I'm going to start giving my initial impressions and the overall view of the speech, and then I'll get right into the specifics. I kept kind of an online blog on a website I'm on of my thoughts as things were going. So we'll go through all of my thoughts on the specific topics that I cared to write down that happened at the time. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I guess let's just jump right in. I thought this was one of Trump's best speeches. I thought it was at least on par, if not slightly better, with his last State of the Union, which I thought was an excellent speech. The only thing that stood out for me in the past State of the Union that this didn't have was, for some reason, the gentleman who escaped North Korea in the last State of the Union, who was holding up the crutches. I don't know why, but that image stuck with me as far as just kind of an emotional image. Not that there weren't some great emotional images here that are worth talking about. So, oh, thank you, Empire Post. Yeah. Well, oh, and Alan, if your phone doesn't last, that's all right. Just trust me, Alan. Whatever I say will be fantastic. You can tell people, yeah, I listened to the Normal America show with Rob. He was spot on as always. So, by the way, I don't know if you all saw the last video I put up, but I have officially been declared the best independent content creator on YouTube. So, I did it thanks to a coin flip, my trusty coin. Just like the Democrats in the Iowa caucus. You know, I flip it around in my hand until it comes up what I want. But yeah, it proved I'm the greatest. So thank you all for being here supporting the greatest show on YouTube. So yeah, Evil Smile, I thought the speech went very well. Now granted, let's hedge right off the bat, right? Let's hedge and not say this was the greatest thing ever. Here are some legitimate things you could hear about Trump's speech. One, he didn't write it. I get that. But I thought that he delivered the speech well, and his writers did a great job. I thought the ending was very powerful, talking about American exceptionalism, the idea of the frontier, of trying to get out to new frontiers. That fit a big theme in his speech, and that's something you're looking for in a powerful speech, a theme that runs throughout it. I thought this idea of kind of frontiersmanship and going into space, having a space force, being the first man and woman on Mars, it really fit in with that theme. So I thought it was a great end to the speech, and he did enough where he was talking about not just one monolithic group, like not just the founding fathers made this country great, but he went through the frontiersmen, the frontier women, the founding fathers. You know, he mentioned MLK, he mentioned Selma, and a bunch of other groups going on throughout throughout the speech. So I thought that was great. Now, look, it's cheesy. I get it. Some people might say, oh, it's cheesy bringing up all this stuff. Does that have to do with actual policy? No, it doesn't. But understand, the establishment that controls the public narrative, they're so invested in this identity politics garbage, and they routinely denigrate the United States as this terrible place. It's nice to have a leader of our country that's unabashedly proud in this country. That's not to say that the United States hasn't made mistakes in the past and continues to make mistakes. But our country cannot survive leaders that don't love this country. And it's nice to see Trump actually genuinely love this country, as opposed to, I'm not saying Obama didn't love the country, but Obama spent more times telling the world, oh, the U.S. is at fault for all this stuff. It seemed like it was pulling teeth to get Obama to show pride in this country. We heard his wife, Michelle, say, when was this country ever great? Right? So it's hard to survive a leader that doesn't love the country. And so I think that when Trump gives these types of speeches, I really like it. I thought he was good on the specifics of it as well. So understand, what was the purpose of this speech? This speech isn't for the traditional Trump fan. Of course, you're going to like it if you're a traditional Trump fan. But what Trump needs to use the State of the Union for, more than any president in my lifetime, is reaching out to middle America, the people that are maybe independents or that are undecided or that are moderate Democrats. Those are the people Trump needs to be reaching, because more so than any other time in history, the narrative is controlled by forces that are absolutely despising Trump. And so no good news reaches millions of Americans. I talk about this on my show all the time. The establishment controls, particularly the establishment left and the Democratic Party, controls almost every institution that shapes our public narrative. The mainstream media, we know, is 95% against Trump. Academia is 95% against Trump. The entertainment industry, Hollywood, musicians, athletes, probably over 95% against Trump. Silicon Valley, 95% against Trump. So this is his chance to have a captive audience where he can actually talk about a lot of the good things that he's done. And I thought he did an excellent job of this. If you watched my video on last year's State of the Union, one of the things I praised is, even though I'm not someone who peddles in identity politics, I do understand the need to reach out to demographics that traditionally don't vote Republican or wouldn't vote for Trump traditionally. And so I said he did a great job last year of differentiating from illegal immigration to legal immigration. If you come to this country legally and you did everything right, then you're as much of an American as me, and our government should be looking out for you. That is not the same with illegal immigration. Democrats try to conflate those two, and Trump did a great job of reaching out to legal immigrants and saying, no, we respect you, you did the right thing, I'm here to serve you as well. That reaching those demographics that are traditionally being indoctrinated to by these forces that despise Trump from the establishment is an important thing to do. Similarly, I thought Trump did a great job in this speech of reaching out to these demographics. He reached out to, for example, women, minorities, disabled people, talked about the economic growth in those communities looking better under him than any president previously, and things like that. That's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be showing that he was able to reach across the aisle. He was able to accomplish things that traditionally these groups might not have associated with Republicans or Trump, but that they could be proud and understand, hey, Trump's not the evil monster that we thought. Even the people he chose to identify and celebrate from the audience, he did that in a strategic way, I thought, where most of those people came from communities. For example, the first gentleman he talked about, Tony. This was a person who was someone who was addicted to drugs, who then pulled himself out of that, got back with his family, and started a successful business. He uses that to tout his criminal justice reform. That happened to be a black gentleman. It's hard to get the narrative across that Trump's this foaming at the mouth racist that the Democrats try to paint him as, when he's able to bring people like that show they're very appreciative of the policies Trump passed that helped them get where they are. The same with the ICE agent. It wasn't some, skinhead-looking white guy, was it? It was a Hispanic guy. The truth is, when it comes to ICE, a disproportionate members of ICE are people of Hispanic backgrounds. Yet somehow a large group of Democrats in the Democratic leadership paint these people as Nazis. They want you to believe that ICE agents are a bunch of dudes that look like me that are getting their jollies off of locking brown kids in cages. And that's not true. And so good on Trump to reach out to those audiences. I thought he performed the speech very well. It was one of the best State of the Unions I ever heard, one of the better political speeches I've ever heard. I thought he was able to point out all sorts of great things that he's done to help this country. And I thought he was able to reach a more middle audience, wasn't just speaking to his base. And hopefully it accomplished all of that. It's coming off a really good time for Trump, too, because even though I'm skeptical of polls, that's something you'll learn about me on this channel, even Gallup, which is a poll I think would lean towards disliking Trump and overpolling people that are predisposed to disliking Trump, even them today have Trump at 49% approval. Now, he won the presidency at 41% approval. He's 3 points higher than that Gallup poll than Obama was at this term in his presidency. I think more and more people, independents, even moderate left-wing people, are starting to realize the hack job the establishment has played on him. And so this comes at a great opportunity for Trump to reach out to those people, and I thought he did a fantastic job. So, okay, I was ranting there. I missed a lot of the chat. Let's go back. For those of you who don't know, I'm simulcasting on YouTube. I have Facebook for the first time today, D Live, some other places. Preacher, thanks for being here. Iron Crane says, he asked a question last time and I didn't answer. Feel free to ask again. I know I'm really bad at reading the chat. That's one of the problems with doing the show on my own. I start talking and then I miss the chat. So feel free to ask your question again and hopefully I'll get to it. Let's see. Preacher, thanks for being here. Layman Gallagher, thank you. Yeah, I agree, Raleigh Wood. I thought it was a great day for America. Preacher, could have spent more than 3 seconds on the Second Amendment. That's true. I think that Trump is not someone who, I'll just be flat out honest with this. I don't think that he's someone who realizes the importance of the Second Amendment as much as I would like in a president. So I think that's why it's important for us to show him, Mr. Trump, your supporters think the Second Amendment is crucially important, and we will not stand for attacks against it. So that's one of the reasons that we need to be doing things like the Virginia rally. But yeah, I would have liked to see him spend more time on that. But I guess the devil's advocate would be, you have to talk about, right, he's trying to reach to those middling groups like I was talking about, and maybe that's not the best issue for moderates. Not that they'd be against it, and we certainly as Second Amendment advocates should be reaching out to those moderates, but Trump was remember, he only gets this hour and a half every year to speak directly to the American people because of the corruption of the mainstream media and the establishment. Yeah, I'm on D Live, so thank you for the people there. Jeremy Elliott says, our pendulum must swing at least as much far to the right as theirs does to the left. The State of the Union did so, as does Trump on a regular basis. Kind of, but I don't even think these are extreme right-wing positions. I think they're commonsensical right-wing positions, such as he didn't say no abortion ever. He said, we're sick and tired of these third trimester abortions. He talked about things that I think used to be moderate positions, but now they're deemed far right because of how far left the left has gone. I mean, totally nationalizing the energy sector and healthcare, that's close to as far left as you could get. I don't see the equivalent of that on the right? I didn't see Trump advocating it, but I do agree Trump's approval amongst Republicans is very high because he is unabashedly pro-American and he's starting to learn. Look, there's no sense trying to appease to these radical establishment far left people. So I'm just going to advocate policies that are best for the average American, and that's a good thing. I'm not going fast enough. What he did for Rush was awesome. Yeah, I saw Magnolia, how Nancy ripped up the speech. More childishness. That's all they have. It's absolute ridiculous. I'm going to skip some here. Yeah, I think Trump did strengthen his base, Mark, but I think even more importantly than strengthening his base and speaking to his traditional supporters, he grew his base by speaking to people in the middle, and I think that's what's great. Modus was on with Drone. Yeah. SJG, yeah, you can call in. I'll put the number up here in a minute. Yeah, I didn't know Drone Tech was doing a live stream. I reached out to him to see if he wanted to collaborate on it, but hopefully his stream's doing great. I'm happy with how mine's going right now. Thank you, WJ Spade, for switching over. Drone Tech's the man. Yeah, SJG, you can call in. Let me put the number up here. Iron Crane wants to know, do I want a PayPal donation or a super chat in a larger channel to potentially get more subs? I haven't thought of the pros and cons of either one. I lean towards the super chat. Now, once I'm able to monetize, which I'm about 300 hours away, hopefully I'll get there by the end of February. The super chats on here would be great. I really don't have a preference though, and I bet that you're smarter than me when it comes to what would be best for my channel in the way to donate. So I'll leave that up to you. Anyone who would consider donating, in my description is links to my Patreon and PayPal. I can't do super chats right now because I'm not monetized, but that should be coming by next month. But anyone who's willing to donate financially, I assure you, I'm very transparent with where the money goes to helping my channel, and I'm incredibly humbled that people would consider donating. So thanks for that, Iron Crane. Yeah, I'll get to SJG here in a second. Yeah, you're absolutely right though, Mark. So SJG, if you're watching, let me put the number up. I forget it. To my channel, and you can call in for sure. I'd love to hear from you. Sorry, it takes a second because I'm using old computer because I'm a poor person. So here comes that number. So this is just for SJG here to call in now, but I promise I'll take call-ins later as well. SJG, if you're there, there's the number. But yeah, I thought it was a great State of the Union. Now, I have tons to get to on the specifics. Like I said, I took specific notes live on a blog as things were going, so we'll get to all of my notes. But let's see what my buddy SJG has to say. As always, when he comes on, if he calls in, could the chat just let me know that my and his audio is okay? I've been known from time to time to ramble on with my mic shut off, so... Give me the PayPal donation then, Iron Crane, because I don't know how the super chat will work until I'm monetized to get it. So yeah, just a PayPal donation will be great. Okay, this should be SJG. But thank you again for your support. PayPal donation's my answer, Iron Crane.
Call from
SJG.
To accept, press 1.
Hey, you there, man?
I'm here, man. How are you doing, brother?
Doing great. What'd you think? I thought it was a great State of the Union.
I thought it was a great State of the Union, too, and everyone keeps going off about this. He didn't talk enough about the Second Amendment, and I thought he talked plenty about it. When he talked about it, it was very pointed, very direct, very strong, and it just, I didn't have any, personally, I didn't have any, like he should have talked more about it. I felt like he could have preached on it for a while, but when you're doing a State of the Union, you got so many things you got to get to. He didn't preach on anything for too long. It was point by point by point, and he had a lot to fit in. So I thought he did an amazing job with that. Overall, I wasn't happy with I will tell you a thing I didn't necessarily love was the whole Juan Guaido thing.
Agreed. I agree.
I wasn't like, that bothered me. That was the only thing that bothered me about the whole thing with this Venezuela stuff. But everything I was shocked at how ridiculous Nancy was acting, like a little baby brat. I wanted to reach through. My wife, who doesn't normally watch these things, and she's not that political, she was so funny because she goes, you know what? They should make it illegal. They should make it illegal if people don't stand up and if people don't clap. And I'm like, well, then it would be Russia.
Yeah.
We can't do that. That would be China. So we can't do that, but I agree with you. It's shameful. It's so disgusting and shameful.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I agree with you. I think that's the big story. As good as Trump sounds, the Democrats look exactly that awful. And I'll get to specifically a lot of specific issues where they look bad. The one thing I'll say about the Second Amendment, while I still have you on here, is I guess I would have liked to have seen him say specifically, "Thank you to the patriots that went to Virginia." But other than that, yeah, I'm with you. He's trying to hit all of these things very quickly, and he certainly didn't spend... he spent a lot of time on illegal immigration, as he should. That was kind of his big issue, so of course he's going to spend the most time on that. And so, yeah, but I was happy. I'm not displeased with the second. That's really nitpicking, but I'm totally with you. When you get to my notes, you'll see that's the one area I'm right with you, the Venezuela stuff. And while you're still here, let me ask you this. Did you notice one of the only things that the Democrats will stand up and applaud Trump for is basically talking about interfering in Venezuela? This is the party of peace, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yep.
They won't cheer for minority economic success. They won't cheer for helping with disabilities, but they'll cheer for interfering in Venezuela's election.
Yeah, I know. That's the one thing I told my wife. I'm like, wow, the one thing that gets bipartisan support is war, is interfering in other people's democracies in war, man. That gets both of them up off their feet. And the other thing, it's like they can stand and they can clap for saving the trees, but when it comes to saving babies, they sit on there. They don't even flinch. Right. They don't even flinch. You can have the most heartfelt thing about this 21-week-old baby that was born and made, and lived, and that he's going to put more money to prenatal, and they don't even put their hands together. I was just like, you give more shits about infrastructure and about the trees than you do about living human beings, right. You pieces of crap.
I agree.
It was disgusting to me.
Well, hey, let me ask you, SJG. Yeah. I don't know how late you'll be on here, but would you be interested in calling in later after I run through my spiel if you're still around?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to take over your thing here. I just wanted to call in and say that I thought it was fantastic, and his State of the Union and Nancy ripping that speech up at the end. Someone needs to kick her in her cooter because that was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm glad for it. Like, one of the things that I'm constantly impressed by is just how incompetent the Democrats are. Not only do I find them morally reprehensible in many issues like the third-term abortion, but even then, I always talk about there's the moral argument, but then there's the strategic argument. Who does Nancy think she's reaching by shredding up Trump's speech at the end of the speech? I mean, is there one voter in America that's like, oh, I've changed my mind. I was on the fence, but now I'm with the Democrats. It's just insane stupidity. And Trump's very fortunate to have so many dumb people being aligned against him.
Yeah, I know. So. All right, man. Well, hey, you guys, I appreciate everybody over there. And I appreciate your channel, brother. And yeah, I might call in later. If not, I'll be listening. I'm gonna hang out. But I love you, man.
All right, love you. Yep. I put a link. Later, I put a link to your channel in the chat, so people check that out. And I'll make sure I put that link again later. Also, I want to give a shout out to my friend Drone Tech, me and SJG's friends Drone Tech. I don't know if he's in here right now, but he is awesome. He recommended people come over here. He's one of my better friends. He literally, the first live stream I ever did, I had no idea what was going on. I had one viewer. It was Drone Tech. He taught me how to use OBS. So thank you so much to him and for people that came over from his channel. Milo, thanks for being here. He's one of my great patrons. Milo said, Iron Crane, that pushing my channel is more important than anything else. I agree with that. It is. I just don't understand how the super chat on another channel works. So that's why I said PayPal, but maybe someone could talk me through that understands more. I know that I can't personally get super chats until I get officially monetized by YouTube. So, all right, people want to hear the thoughts on the State of the Union, so let's get to that. So, what I did was, I'm not going to bring up the blog so you can see it, but I was on a website I go to, Above Top Secret, and I blog a lot of my live feelings on these speeches there. So I'm literally just going to go through. I got 3 pages of comments from the State of the Union. So I'm going to go from beginning to end in chronological order. So the first thing I say is this. By the way, after every 3 things I read, I'll check the chat because I know I do a bad job of that. So if I miss your chat, I'm extremely sorry, but I do try to read them. So I need to get better at that. But all right, first thing I say. He starts with the economy and our respect in the world. That's definitely a great place to start because only the blind would suggest that our economy hasn't taken off. Now, the Democrats might say it isn't all because of Trump, or you could make a legitimate argument that, well, maybe it's because Trump deficit spended and that's a bad thing. I think there's room to have an argument there. But clearly the economy is doing far better than it was under Obama. And so he's right to start there. That is a good place to start. It's also nice to finally see a president that wants our country to not lose economically to the rest of the world. Again, I'm not going to sit here and make the claim that Obama hated the United States. I don't know, right? But what I do know is this. He had a world apology tour. And when people talk about, the rest of the world doesn't respect us now, that's not true. The rest of the world didn't respect us under Obama. A leader of the strongest, freest nation of the world groveling to world leaders around the world doesn't achieve respect. They might like that. Of course, the government of Germany would prefer a president in the United States that cared more about Germany than the citizens of the United States. So when people say, Trump's causing us to lose respect. No, he's not. Respect is more than just groveling to people. then people take advantage of you. Respect is they like you, they admire you, but they also understand. There comes with the idea that if they cross you, there are consequences. They don't take advantage of you if they respect you. The next thing I said, he says our border secure. I don't agree with that. I understand Trump's just speaking things up and he's speaking hyperbolically. But yeah, the border, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I understand Trump's going to tout his victories, and he has. Definitely, you can't fault him for pushing to try to get the border wall done. But far more needs to be done. So we as patriots that support Trump or support these things need to keep pushing that to make sure that that gets done. Illegal immigration remains a huge problem to this day, and we need to continue to focus on it. And I hope that Congress stops being so defensive and stops being so, we're testing the waters, and gets on board with Trump. Because illegal immigration is something that goes across the aisle. Even people that lean left are tired of it. We're tired of capitulating to a minority of radicals that want open borders. Trump was right, and it helped him get elected to focus on that, and it's time for Republicans in Congress to get on board with that. Nancy was reading the whole time, and the Dems basically looked like they weren't listening. It's a perfect metaphor for how they treat normal Americans. Again, that's the name of my show. Instead of Average American, it's Normal American because my last name's Noor. So it's kind of a dad joke. But that's who I'm speaking to, average, everyday Americans, blue-collar workers. You could be a white-collar worker. You could be from a rural area. You could be from inner city. But people that aren't connected to the elite class in Washington, D.C. Just look at Nancy being disinterested in the Democrats. That's a perfect metaphor for how they feel about the average American. So let's get to some comments, see if anyone's commenting. Let's see. I wish I knew how to... I have trouble with this. Let's see here. Oop. Yeah, Modus, thanks for being on here. Yeah, WJ Spade said when he talks about how China respects us because they can't abuse us anymore, Nancy rolled her eyes. Of course. I mean, this has to do with cultural Marxism. We talk about this on this channel all the time. The idea that there are oppressor groups and oppressed. You're not an individual. You're just a member of certain characteristics and categories. One of those things is to break us up by nations. America is evil. It's the oppressor. And the rest of the world are oppressed. This goes back historically where they have this idea that, before the settlers came here, this country was this utopia. There was no violence. And then the settlers came in and stole the land. I'm not saying the settlers didn't do some untoward things, but that narrative is grossly simplistic and wrong. And that goes the whole way up until today. Every problem in the world is because of something the United States did. The irony is the very people that say these things then go on to cheer for the intel community that created the problems that they're criticizing in the first place. But they'll cheer for those people that they're criticizing elsewhere as long as it's Orange Man bad and they're going after Trump. So yeah, Preacher, by the way, thank you, Preacher. I see your comment here. Preacher sent me a flag, so when I'm at my home office, that flag will be behind me. So props to Preacher. Thank you so much. Sanctuary cities, I'll get to Evil Smile. Michael Rondo wants to know, be curious what to think if they just kind of redid the gun law, even though I understand that the Second Amendment should be already clear, talking about the specific from the states. Right, so you're saying if they just recodified the Second Amendment? I mean, that's a possibility. I do think that right now the fight's going to be at the state level, and we all need to be doing our best in individual states to protect those rights, but certainly that couldn't hurt to have the federal government recodify exactly what the Second Amendment went. Let's see. Oops. Let me get to the news. Okay. Moving on. More of my comments. Thank you, everyone, in the chat. I'm trying to get a nice mix of doing my comments and looking at the chat, so feel free to criticize me, as always, if I'm doing terribly. But remember, the coin doesn't lie. I have the best show on YouTube, so thank you for your support. Okay. So, the first thing I noticed here with the Dems not applauding. Trump starts to talk about the economic success of minorities. The Democrats don't applaud. It's because they don't care. Trump needs to sell his achievements to these people because the mainstream media and the Dems propagandize to these groups to hide the truth. Now, again, I'm not someone who likes to play identity politics, but I do understand that there are different demographics, and demographics tend to vote a certain way. I personally, in my life, try not to vote as a demographic. For example, I'm a poor person with a lot of college student loan debt. The person who would immediately financially benefit me the most if they got to enact their plans would be Bernie Sanders. But I don't vote just as that group that I'm associated with because I understand it would be devastating for the country. Newsflash, my choice to rack up a bunch of student loan debt and get a degree that was basically worthless was, drumroll please, my choice. So other people shouldn't have to pay for that. But despite that demographic argument I'm talking about, I do understand that in general, demographics do vote in particular blocks. So whether it be 60%, 80%, 90%. And so it's worth reaching out to them. One of the things that comes with the black community is they've constantly been fed this lie for 20, 30 years that the Republicans are all racist and hate them. But that's a whitewashing of history. We know that the KKK and these other parties were the other groups were the Democratic Party. Now, I know that the Southern strategy supposedly changed all this, but this is an oversimplification as well. Watch Dinesh D'Souza. He talks a lot about that. But not even getting into the history of it, I think that the policies that have been enacted in these black communities that have been controlled predominantly by Democrats at the local and state level and even at the federal level have been disastrous for these inner cities. So things like a perpetual victimhood status, the war on poverty, which led to incentivizing single motherhood, etc. I don't know if it's true, but supposedly Lyndon Johnson, a Democrat, said when talking about the war on poverty policy, said we'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 100 years. Now, regardless if that was said or not, there could be some truth in that. I choose to treat people based on the content of their character. I don't think because of your skin color, I have to treat you as somehow a child or an inferior. I think that's insulting and disgusting. I don't think we should have policies that do that. And so when we see that this group constantly says, no, the Republicans are racist. No, Trump's racist. Yet look at his policies. Economic numbers for the black community, particularly the poorest of blacks in the inner cities, have gone through the roof under Trump. Now, it could always get better, of course. But that's hardly the mark of the racist that the establishment would have you believe that Trump is. So kudos to him for trying to reach out to these communities, And I think that you're starting to see that Trump's getting a larger percentage of the black vote than most Republicans before him because he's being unabashed in reaching out to them and saying, hey, man, you're Americans. I'm reaching out to your communities as well. So I thought that was a very good part of his speech. And the fact that the Democrats don't applaud that shows they're more concerned with hating Trump than applauding that economic numbers for black Americans are going up. It's not difficult to applaud and say, listen, I make these arguments all the time. I say the Democrats are so dumb. They don't understand. It would be a simple thing to say this. Look, thank God the economy is getting better for black Americans, particularly a lot of the poor black Americans. That's a great thing. Now, we don't think that the Republicans or Trump are the reason for that. We think there's other reasons. And we think that even if you do think that Trump had something to do with it, we could do better. Now, I don't think that's true that the Democratic policies would do better. But in that way, you're saying you're not coming off as a total insufferable dolt that's unwilling to cheer for the advancement of people that were in crippling poverty that are doing even somewhat better. You're not even going to cheer for economic success in the black community because you hate Trump that much. It's easy to just say, yes, we'll cheer for that success, but we still hate Trump. But the Democrats aren't even smart enough to do that. And again, when I say Democrats, please don't be mistaken. I don't mean you, the Democrat viewer that might be watching. I don't mean my friend that's a Democrat. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the people that were in the room tonight. I understand there are great Democrats that I personally know. We might disagree on policies, but they love America and they want what's best for this country. So please don't think I'm saying every person, your local town councilman that's a Democrat. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the leadership that was in the room this evening. Trump touts lifting people off of welfare. This is hated by the establishment and the Democrats because they want people to remain perpetually poor and dependent on them. And this is one of the things I talk about with the globalists all the time. The number one goal for the globalists is to erase the middle class, particularly in the United States, because they understand the middle class was the biggest threat to their hegemony or their total consolidation of power. They would rather have the extremely wealthy and everyone else dependent on the wealthy. A return to feudalism, just like we see in LA, just like we see in these big cities in California, where people like Zuckerberg live on their castles and people live in human waste below them. But Zuckerberg feels so morally good because he's like, here's some bread, here's some circuses. We'll feed you poor people, just don't you dare criticize us. That's what the globalists want. And so welfare is a big part of that. They'll provide you, don't work, sit at home, collect disability. I've been watching a lot of Judge Judy. I would wager to say 40% of the people on Judge Judy are unemployed because they're on disability or some other kind of welfare. I mean, it's insane. The racket is huge. That's not to say that all those people are fraudulent. Maybe many deserve it. But there are certainly a lot of fraudulent people. And the establishment is more than willing to give you free food, to give you free shelter, as long as you're dependent on them. Again, this isn't just right-wing people that criticize this. Go read postmodernist leftist Michel Foucault. He talks about the idea of biopower. The idea being that once you give the government the ability to give you life, you also give the government the ability to take your life away. It's like a switch. Hey, don't criticize us. We'll feed you. We'll do whatever you want. You sit at home. We'll pay you to just sit at home while we're up in this castle. But as soon as you go against us, we'll flip that switch and turn your life off. So back to the chat here for a minute. See if anyone says anything. Bring the troops home. I totally agree. I thought that was one of the best parts of the speech, which I'll get to. Adults, yeah, you like that? Lori's leaving. I'm sorry I missed that, Lori. Thanks for being here. You're the best, Lori. Right, Jeremy Elliott. It's about codependency. I totally agree. So if I missed anyone's comments there, please try to retype them and I'll try to get to them. But yeah, it's definitely a racket. Moving on to more of my comments. I thought that was an excellent stat, and I'll need to verify this, but it's a very interesting stat that I want to check out. And that's when he said that income has gone up at a higher percentage for the poorest Americans more than it has gone up for the wealthy Americans. Now, let's put that into context. That doesn't mean that the income gap couldn't have grown. Because consider this, if the wealthiest Americans are all making $1 million a year and the poorest are making $100 a year, a 100% increase for the $100 a year would be $200 a year. Whereas a 10% increase for the 1 million would be what? 10,000. So even in that situation, the income gap grew. And it is worth talking about income disparity. It's a serious problem that warrants talking about. I absolutely agree. The problem is many people that focus on income disparity are kind of crooked and not being honest with what their complaint is. Again, I talk about this often. I didn't come up with this. This was something I heard Jordan Peterson talking about. George Orwell was writing a book, The Road to Wigan Pier, and the first half of the book was all about how terrible these workers had it. He was writing it for socialists in London. The second half of that book is George Orwell saying, I get the sneaking suspicion that it's not that these communists and socialists care about the poor workers, it's that they hate the rich. So it's not an ideology coming out of love, it's an ideology coming out of we hate people that have more than us. And they use the poor people as tokens to go after the rich. And there's a lot of that when you talk about income disparity. Oh, the rich are immoral. Listen to Bernie Sanders talk about that. Well, not necessarily true. And so you have to ask yourself, would you be willing to shrink income disparity by making all Americans poor? Even though income disparity is something worth talking about, I would rather see income disparity be really bad, but the poorest Americans aren't starving, they have access to shelter, they have access to food, they have access to forms of healthcare, etc. I would rather live in that world where here's the poorest Americans and the wealthiest are way up here than, well, we've shrunk the gap because the poor Americans have fallen, but so have the richer. So I can understand how that stat could still be spun as, oh, but income disparity is still going high. But if that's true, and I have to fact check Trump on this, but I have no reason to disbelieve it. Think of what this means. Trump's policies like the tax cuts are routinely panned by left-wing people as just increasing wealth for the richest Americans. But that's not true. They disparage what they call trickle-down economics. But that disparaging term is something that is actually true in economics. And that is when you allow business owners to keep more of their money, they tend to invest it back in their business, which means the employees of that business do better. That is true. The times when we've had the most economic prosperity in this country were the times when we had the least amount of government intervention. Back before the Federal Reserve and we were borrowing money from private banks. So the Republicans need to do a better job of talking about why Trump's policies, such as the tax cuts, have been good. And actually, they've been good not just for the wealthiest Americans, not just for Wall Street, but also the poorest Americans. Remember, wages have been stagnant for the middle and lower class for about 30 years in this country. Now, more work needs to be done. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying it's all Trump's fault, or it's all Trump's benefit that things have been going up. But certainly it's something worth talking about, and it shatters the mainstream narrative if that's true. Okay, check chat real quick. Yeah, Jeremy Elliott, no rich, no jobs. That's just it. The Bernie Sanders of the world think you could take all of the rich's money and just give it away to the poor. But that's not the way it works. The rich will just leave. Or they'll stop investing in companies and stop making capital and making growth. If it's going to be taxed at 100%, why work anymore? They'll go overseas, and then their benefit and their productivity ends up being consolidated overseas. Now, does that mean that some rich are immoral? Of course there are some that are immoral. For example, we saw all sorts of corruption in the 2008 financial crisis from people on Wall Street and bankers. What did Obama do? He gave them your money. He gave them a bailout. Let's see. Someone was missing here. Yeah, I'll get to the reunion, Iron Crane. I agree. I thought that was awesome. Dib says Trump screwed me on taxes. Dib, was it because your state increased taxes because of Trump's cut? Is that what it was? Maybe. And also understand this. Like, no matter what a particular president's policies are, there's always going to be winners and losers. What you want is for a tide to rise almost all ships. But no matter what, someone's going to fall off. So you're hoping that on average more people are successful than a few, because I know people like that are like, well, this specific policy under Obama benefited me specifically, and now that it's been removed, I'm furious. And I get that. If that's how you want to vote, that's how you vote. I get it. But understand that your one story isn't indicative of everyone. But Dib knows that. He's not. Oh, Dib got screwed in federal taxes. I'm sorry, Dib. I really am. Right, the rich are demonized, and they're just like anyone else. This might blow your mind. With rich people, all right, you ready for this? Sometimes you could have immoral rich people that are terrible people. But you ready? You could also have rich people that are great people. Wow, isn't that crazy? No, wait, it gets even crazier. Poor people, you could have poor people that are great people. That's true. But wait, did you know this? You can have poor people that are terrible people too. Isn't that crazy? Bernie Sanders wants to demonize the rich, but how does Bernie Sanders define rich? Anybody with one penny more than him. He used to rail against millionaires. Now he's a millionaire, so he rails against billionaires. Did you ever notice that? All the people that complain about the immoral rich, almost all of them have more money than me. So they say, hey, I make $1 million a year. Everyone making more money than me is immoral. But some schlub like me that's making like $45,000 a year is like, hey, you make $1 million a year? Heck, you make $150 a year? Why is it that you're moral, but that person making more than you is immoral? What I choose to say is, hey, if you made that money, good for you. I hope you didn't break any laws. There's plenty ways of not only legal, but ethically moral ways to make a lot of money. If that's what you're doing, more power to you. Iron Crane says, I know not everyone could come home, but every one of us vets and every active serviceman who saw that could see how great that was. You can see how much it meant to the kids. I agree 100%, and I'll get to that point. I was hoping when they brought that woman up that the next thing out of Trump's mouth would be, and we have a surprise for you. Yeah, it was emotional. And it doesn't matter how many times you see a scene like that, it is emotional. To know that someone, and I'll get to more when I get there. I have some stuff written down about that. So, moving on with my comments. Okay, criminal justice reform. This is something the Dems wanted for years. Okay, the Democrats at this point, for the first time when Trump talked about criminal justice reform, stood up and applauded. Now, they almost had to, because this was a Democratic dream. In fact, many Republicans are upset with this. It's a complicated issue. On one hand, I believe in giving second chances, but on the other hand, I think that it could be taken too far, and we could leave violent criminals out that end up then, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a fancy word for it, and I can't think of it right now. Recidivism, right? Where they can end up reviolating and get back into jail. So it's a tightrope to walk. But this clearly was a step. Trump doing criminal justice reform was an olive branch to the left. This was something the left wanted under Obama and couldn't get. They got it under Trump. So if they don't applaud, well, then they're disingenuous. So they applaud. But the problem is this. Now, we already went through Trump touting just the economy. He touted economic numbers for women. Talked about how many of the jobs that have been created have gone to women. That's supposedly a project of the Democrats and the left. He talked about minorities in the black community. That's supposedly a project of the left. He talked about successful economic numbers, highest ever for Hispanic people. That's something that the left and the Democrats supposedly want. He talked about people with disabilities getting record numbers of increases in jobs. That's something that supposedly the Democrats and the left want. And they did not applaud one time. They sat there with their butt on their hands. That's what they did. Finally, when he talks about criminal justice reform, they clap. Now, to me, this isn't just a signal that, hey, we like criminal justice reform. This shows that they're willing to clap for things they like. So what other logical explanation could I take from this than they hate Trump more than they like a good economy for minorities? Now, the argument you could have made was, listen, they're just not going to applaud for any good news from Trump because they don't like Trump. Okay, if they didn't applaud at anything, I could buy that. But here we see they are willing to applaud. So what they're saying is criminal justice meets the threshold of, despite our hatred for Trump, we like that so much we'll applaud for it. But a good economy for black people does not meet that threshold. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're a member of the black community, remember that. They want, just like Bill Maher said, they want another recession. Anything to bring Trump down. They're praying the economy tanks. Never in my wildest dreams would I suggest something. Bill Maher said that. I swear to you, on election night, I thought in 2016, I thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. I really did. You go back and look at my blog post from that night. This is what I said. I'm expecting Hillary to win. I hope Trump wins. Other than Ron Paul, Trump was the presidential candidate I've supported most in my life. So I hoped he won, but I was pessimistic. And I said, if Hillary Clinton wins, I swear to you that I will cheer for her to do a great job. I will cheer for her to prove me wrong. I hope that she enacts her policies and they're awesome for America. And I'll say, I'm happy to eat crow because it's not about me personally being right. It's about this great country doing as good as it possibly can. And the people in this country having a great economy and having a great livelihood. How petty and vindictive do you have to be to cheer for the economy to crash or to get upset when the economy does great because you're afraid it'll help your opponent? Absolutely disgusting. Yeah, Crate says, the spouse of our active warriors don't know, literally don't know if the next time the warrior ships out will be the last. Absolutely. Absolutely true. They're heroes as well. That people forget about that. Now, that's one of the things when we talk about women's rights all the time. Women's rights aren't just about abortion and things like that. It's stupid. Not only are women, again, this might shock you, women are human beings and they have all sorts of interests and concerns and passions. But one of the things we talk about how war is devastating on men, it is. Overwhelmingly, the amount of people killed in war are men. But for each man that died, there are women in that man's life. And there are certainly women that die serving overseas as well. So, yeah, I mean, the spouses back home are definitely unsung heroes. Moving on. Trump spoke, I talked about how he passed the USMCA, which was the only trade deal that was supported by a large number of unions. Now, I'm not someone who's particularly fond of unions. I think there maybe was a time and place for them in the past, but they've become filled with regress and corruption. Just anecdotally, stories I know of unions is company call in a union, they think they're going to get a raise, but the meager raise they get is offset by the union dues they have to pay, and then their company shuts down 3 months later because the company can't afford to pay. Meanwhile, the union bosses got wealthy, and who cares that the people lost their job? I'm also a big fan of right to work. You shouldn't be forced into signing up for unions if you don't want. But Trump is right to reach out to union members. I say this all the time. Look, Trump maybe not the most likable guy in the world to some people. A lot of Trump people like his brashness. I don't mind it most of the time. But certainly he has personality foibles that people might not like. Okay, fair enough. Let's say you're a traditional old school pro-union Democrat. I know people like this in rural Pennsylvania. They're involved in some sort of union. They voted for Bill Clinton, union Democrat. Where is your party now? I mean, Hillary and Obama was all for the Trans-Pacific Partnership that would have devastated unions by outsourcing jobs. NAFTA basically did the same thing. And they're all for an open border to allow illegal immigrants to come in and take your jobs. And they care more about identity politics than working for the average American to make sure that their economic success and their jobs protected. So you're thinking, where is the party for me? And I've said this. This is a group that Trump can reach out to, unions. Yes, there are industries that are hurt by Trump's tariffs. But there are also a lot of industries that are very much thankful for these tariffs because they're tired of seeing their jobs outsourced to countries like China for cheap labor practices. So if you're a member of a union, if you're a left-wing person in a union, please, I recommend, look into what Trump's actually done. Don't listen to the mainstream media and their propaganda. They're not being honest with you. Next, Trump is right about China. The previous administration for decades bowing down to China and outsourcing the wealth of the USC led to China walking all over us, not respecting us. That's absolutely true. It's true throughout the world, even with our allies, but certainly true with our adversaries. China knew they could push and push and push. So did Iran. We sent them pallets of cash in the middle of the night, billions of dollars. That's what Obama did. They could push and push and push and push and push, and Obama would say, it's our fault, it's our fault, it's our fault. Regardless of what you think of the tariffs. And look, I'm not a big tariff supporter, but I understand there comes a point where the trade relation is so one-sided that something needs to be done, and China knew under previous administrations they could do whatever they wanted. So much wealth has been siphoned out of the middle class in this country in the past 50 years, it's disgusting. Our parents and grandparents that helped build this great country are left with a pittance of what they deserve for the work and energy they put in. Because so many corrupt deals have gone overseas. Because our politicians are basically bought and paid for. That's one of the things you see in the Ukrainian scandal. Your tax dollars are going to the energy industry into the Ukraine. The energy industry in the Ukraine then hires John Kerry and Joe Biden's son. They then pay them up close to $100,000 a month. Where did they get that money? Oh yeah, from your tax dollars that went to the Ukrainian energy sector. So it's a nice way to funnel money back into these politicians. So much abuse has been done by a large federal government to destroy our middle class that it's absurd. And I think, regardless if I think that every specific policy Trump's enacted has been a good idea, I think that at least his heart's in the right place and he's fighting for the American worker, which is something that I appreciate and we haven't seen for decades. Next, and this is what SJG talked about. This was the only part of the speech I didn't like, and I'll be interested to read the chat here because I'm sure people will disagree with me. Let me premise this by saying I have no love for socialism whatsoever. None. I think that I did have a debate with Thomas Blow on here where he says we should criminalize advocating socialism. I disagree. The First Amendment says you have the right to free speech. And now I'm going to say that I don't want us intervening in Venezuela, even though they have a socialist leader. But trust me, I think, without bragging too much about myself, that I'm one of the most skilled and passionate people at arguing against socialism that you'll find. But in this particular instance, I don't think that we should be using socialism as an excuse to interfere in another country. I don't care if there's corruption in the elections in Venezuela. I don't care at all. It's not our place to go in. And our intel agencies have lied to us so many times in these disastrous foreign regime change wars that I no longer trust them. And an antenna raises for me anytime we start talking about, oh, these elections were corrupt and we need to back the other guy because blah, blah, blah. Because our intel agents have a huge storied history of making that exact same claim over and over, only for the results to end up disastrous and us to be in conflict with terrorists 20 years later because the people they backed ended up being horrible. Like Fidel Castro in Cuba, or overthrowing the Shah in Iran, or overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya, and on and on and on. Trying to back ISIS in Syria, as I'll get to in a minute. So I disagree with Trump on that point. Now, is Trump saying we're going to send troops in? I don't think that's what he said, so I'm not going that far in criticizing him. But we should be skeptical anytime we talk about interfering in a foreign country like that. Now, the other part I have to say on this was the second time that the Democrats stood up and applauded. So they won't applaud for a good economy for African Americans, but they'll applaud with interfering in a foreign country's election system. Isn't that exactly what they're accusing Trump of in the Ukraine? But they're okay with it in Venezuela. And look, if you're a Trump supporter and you say, yes, but I hate socialism, and clearly Venezuela is corrupt, I've no doubt that's true. I've no doubt that Venezuela is corrupt. I've no doubt that socialism is a big reason that it's failing. I don't buy this, oh, socialism was working there, it's the U.S. fault that Venezuela failed. Garbage. No. Socialism is leading to the downfall of Venezuela. That still does not mean we should interfere in their election systems. If there is corruption going on, then let the people of Venezuela handle it. All the U.S. getting involved will rally the people of Venezuela against the United States, just like has occurred in Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan probably didn't like the Taliban warlords that were controlling their country. But when the U.S. comes in and burns down the poppy fields or takes it in the CIA and sells it, do you think that makes the people happy? No. Then they go back to the Taliban because they're like, we don't like the U.S. that's coming in here. So there's only a problem of making things worse. And if you're a Trump supporter, here's my plea to you to reconsider if you think that this Venezuela thing's a good idea. And to Trump himself, if he would happen to be listening to my meager show. The intel community lies to you 24/7. They are engaged in a coup to overthrow you. Don't believe them when they tell you to go against your gut feeling and start foreign regime change wars or start interfering in other countries' election systems. Don't believe them. They do not have your best interests in heart, nor the best interests of the American people. So I'll see if anyone disagrees with me in the chat here. A lot of talking union. So yeah, if you disagree with me, I apologize, but I think that, I'm not someone who's just going to come on and say Trump all the time. Like, that's not who I am. I'm going to give my honest opinion, whether it's on this show or anywhere else I'm at. That's how I feel on that. Bummers take on speak softly and carry big stick, which is Trump's motto, is dazzle with your oration and gladly give your milk money to every bully you encounter. Okay, good. I was hoping I'd have someone disagree with me. So Magnolia Weston says, aren't Russia and China setting up shop in Venezuela? Do we really want them at our doorstep? Isn't that the same argument they use in Ukraine? And we know that's garbage. I just listened to Adam Schiff tell me for 2 weeks? Trump needs to be impeached because he didn't want to send aid to Russia or to Ukraine to fight Russia. And if we don't fight Russia over there, then we'll fight them over here. So who says that Russia and China are setting up in Venezuela? Our CIA? I don't trust them. I don't trust them in Ukraine. I didn't trust them in Libya, so why would I trust them in Venezuela? And even if it is true that Russia and China are getting involved, then let that be a boondoggle for them. Can you name one time that we've got involved in a foreign country's system like that that's ended up benefiting us? In fact, if you go back and you look at the Afghanistan situation, so back in the late 70s, Mika Brzezinski, I think that's married to Joe Scarborough, right? Her dad, what was his name? Zbigniew Brzezinski, I can't pronounce it. He was working in the State Department at the time, in the administration in the late 70s. He wrote a book called The Grand Chessboard, which he was getting interviewed with in the late 90s. And in that book, you have to understand, in the late 70s, you had Afghanistan. Watch the movie Rambo 3, for example. Okay? Russia was accusing the United States of arming terrorists in Afghanistan that were then bombing areas of Russia. And the United States said, oh, no, we're not doing that. This is a totally organic thing. And then Brzezinski admitted, yeah, that's exactly what we did. If you watch Rambo 3, he flies in, right, to Afghanistan, and he meets these noble farmers wearing turbans, and the evil Russians are coming in with their Warhawk helicopters and bombing them, and they're all fighting on horses, and they're noble. And he sits down with these, sheep herders, and the head one speaks to him and says, for thousands of years, people have tried to invade Afghanistan, and us noble people have stopped them, us the Mujahideen. You know what that is? It's the Taliban. That's what the movie Rambo 3 is. It's Rambo working with the Taliban. And it turns out, yes, we did that. That's exactly what the United States did. Now, why am I bringing this up? What was Brzezinski's defense of doing that? He said, we wanted to give them their Vietnam. And it worked. It brought down the Soviet Union. It bankrupted them. So we knew, foreign policy-wise, the intel agencies knew that getting involved in countries like that could only harm our opponents. So why would we willfully do it ourselves? It will enrich certain people. It'll enrich the military-industrial complex. It'll enrich people that then use with putting up the next regime, just like they did in Ukraine. Same argument in Ukraine. Oh, Russia's getting involved with the Yanukovych regime in 2014, so we helped sponsor a coup and put in the Poroshenko regime. And guess what? The people of the Ukraine said, no, the Poroshenko regime is also corrupt. So my default is, until I see definitive proof that we should be involved in a system like that or a country like that, we should stay out of it. Right, it's their fight watching trains go by. But thank you for disagreeing, and you could very well be right. I think there's definitely room to disagree on that. But that's just the only area I did not like of this speech. It wasn't a huge deal, but isn't it funny that the Democrats, the party of peace, they all applauded for that? Couldn't applaud for economic numbers for black people or disabled people or women. But they'll applaud interfering in a foreign country. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The only time I saw the New York Times and MSNBC and CNN praise Trump was at Trump's lowest point in this presidency, when he bombed Syria. Because I knew that Assad did not gas his own people. At least I had strong feelings. And I demanded to see proof before we dropped bombs on another country. Now we know from whistleblowers at the OPCW that it looks, as predicted, like Assad never did do a gas attack. So we bombed innocent people for no reason. Yet at that one time, that's the only time that you could turn on CNN and see Anderson Cooper saying, finally, Trump's acting presidential. And Rachel Maddow, and Jake Tapper, and the people at the New York Times and Washington Post. Doesn't that raise some red flags? The party of peace, the Democrats, their leader Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. The only time they salute Trump and cheer for Trump is when he's dropping bombs. Ian was the kid that wanted to join the Space Force. I'm going to take these headsets off for a minute until I take calls. I thought he seemed awesome. He was dressed to the nines, wanted to go to space. I wrote, when I was his age, all I wanted was more Cheetos. And then, how cool was it that his dad was a Tuskegee Airman? Really emotional thing. 100 years old. That guy was 100 years old, a Tuskegee Airman who was just made a brigadier general. Good for him. I love seeing stories like that. Now, is that a reason to vote for Trump or anything like that? No. But I do think that Trump does have an authentic streak in him when he does really support veterans. He does things that you can't make up. Like I've seen several times, he'll be getting off Air Force One or a helicopter or something, and a Marine's hat will blow. And Trump will instinctively run and grab the hat and put it back on the Marine. It's hard to fake things that spontaneous. Now juxtapose that to Obama standing giving a speech while a Marine has to stand in the rain holding an umbrella over Obama. Trump, at this point, then he starts talking about great leaders of the past, and he mentions Martin Luther King, and he mentions the March in Selma. And I always find it funny, because that should be, if anything, that should be the Democrats applauding, right? Yet they look around like, are we allowed to applaud MLK? Trump said MLK. We allowed to applaud it? They don't know. I just find that hilarious. I'll repeat this over and over and over and over again. I'm not concerned with MLK as the man. I know he was an adulterer, apparently, and he had sins like everyone. But the symbol of MLK, the central thing of MLK is treat people based on the content of their character, not on superficial things like the color of their skin. Which party represents that ideology? Which party judges you based on your skin color, and which party judges you based on the content of your character? All you had to do was watch the mainstream media all day today. Go watch the first 10 minutes of Tucker Carlson today, where he has clip after clip after clip after clip of people in the mainstream media going, I don't know why Iowa has the first caucus. It's 90% white. It doesn't represent the country. It's too white. All these white people. You don't see white kids in cages. That's why turnout wasn't high. You don't see that from me, do you? You don't see me talking about skin color like that, do you? Denigrating people based on their skin color. So no wonder the Democrats don't know whether to clap for MLK or not. Next, Trump talks about school choice. This is a huge, not only a great idea, but a huge win for Black America. Statistics show over and over again that Black students in the inner city that go to charter schools have way more percentage of having a successful life than those that are stuck in the crappy inner city schools. The fact that the Democrats are against it blows my mind. Not really, though. Because there's no good argument against school choice. Why wouldn't you want, of all people, to give inner city blacks that the Democrats' own argument is, they're victims, they're disenfranchised, they're in a terrible situation. Now, I don't go as far as them, but certainly it's a tough situation. So why wouldn't you at least give them the ability to choose what school they want to go to and give them vouchers to do so? The only argument I could come up with is the Dems, and I talk about this all the time, not just the Democrats, but the establishment. They know that they've played the long game and infiltrated academia. When we talk about academia being so left-wing, normally we focus on colleges, but that's not the only case. It's also true at the very lowest levels. Kindergarten, grade school. And so those are the indoctrination camps. I had someone call in last night in the Patriot panel I was on. He was a gym teacher in Florida, elementary school. And was hearing all the crap that teachers were teaching about how bad Trump is, how bad Republicans are, how racist they are, how terrible the United States is. This has been going on for 30, 40 years, this indoctrination. And so if we start to allow vouchers to private schools that aren't ran by the government, that all numbers show have a far higher success rate. The students coming out of these charter schools, their grades are through the roof. Their competency skills are through the roofs compared to the state-ran schools. So why would you be against them? Well, because they want state-ran everything. Just look at the Green New Deal. And just like schools show, when you give the state the ability to run stuff, it'll be done corruptly and inefficiently. They don't want to lose their little indoctrination chambers. This should be a huge issue that Republicans push, and a huge issue to try to get votes from groups that traditionally don't favor the Republicans or Trump. School choice is huge. And I do think it's a shame. I mean, imagine, I say this all the time. If you're someone who grew up in an inner city neighborhood and you're black and you've been told your whole life you're a victim and you're in poverty and there's gang violence all around you and you're maybe in a single parent household and you go to school and the culture around you says you're a nerd, you're terrible, you get physically attacked if you try to study and get good grades. I know if I grew up in that environment, I know exactly what I'd have done. Not taken school seriously, joined in with the gangs. That's what I would have done. So the people that come out of those communities, to me, are great Americans and people that we should really look up to and celebrate as incredibly strong people that overcame incredible adversity. Not just from their communities, but also major establishment players saying, don't try too hard. You're a victim. The world owes you something. And they said, screw that, I'm going to achieve on my own. To me, that's what charter schools represent. Giving these parents the chance to give their kids a chance and to get out of that crappy situation. And the Democrats are against it. Let's see if we got anything in the chat. Let's see. Ask our governor that question, Ron. Dib judges everyone by their appearance. Wise choice. That's why you're here. That's why you're one of my great patrons. With a face like this, who wouldn't support, right? Let's see. I missed what Preacher said here. Let's see if I can get it. See, this is why. Faye says, I live in a small town. They still segregate the children as much as possible. We have 2 schools within 15 miles of each other, and one is predominantly black and one is predominantly white. Look, this is something that people don't want to talk to about, but people tend to voluntarily associate with people that are within the same ethnicity and race. It's hard for the government to mandate otherwise. So, I'm familiar. One of the debate topics one year that we talked about a lot was forced busing. Forced busing is terrible. Even if you had good motivation for it, we'll integrate. Because what happens is you say no segregation, which I agree, no segregation. There should not be governmental segregation. It's deplorable. By the way, who's advocating that now? Who wants black-only spaces? When the most progressive, the most social justice-y of us agree with the KKK, maybe you should start to realize there's a problem. So I'm not for segregation. But I don't see how you could force people to not live where they want to live. And forced busing was a disaster. Remember, Kamala Harris tried to attack Biden with it in the first debate, and then even she had to admit, yeah, it's a disaster. It's even a disaster in the black community. 70-some% people don't like it. So yeah, there's definitely voluntary segregation that occurs. But what we should seek to do, you're comfortable with people that look like you or that, come from a similar culture to you, that's fine. But we should seek to integrate in our lives, just as an individual. But the government should have no business in that. Just saying. Charter school's a good idea, though. need to get your number to me. Fluid Poor Patriot. My email is rob.nor@gmail.com. And so feel free to send me your number there, and I promise I won't share it with anyone. Multiculturalism, a loss of national identity helped create cultural areas in modern city. Enclaves of people that don't see a national identity to adopt. Yeah, and that's absolutely true, right? There are good things that come with multiculturalism, but as with everything, there's bad things as well. You cannot have a country that doesn't have some sort of cohesion, some sort of ideal that brings us all together. I think that ideal should be what the country was founded on: personal liberty, personal responsibility, freedom, camaraderie, to say I can have my beliefs, my neighbor can have their beliefs, but we come together to celebrate this country and celebrate the idea of personal freedom and responsibility. And that's what brings us together. But if you just bring people on and cheer in multiculturalism and you say, oh, the US culture is bad, and, white people shouldn't try to adopt cultures of other people and blah, blah, blah. That's setting up these enclaves, which ends up leading to tensions. That's how you could get entitled illegals that fled countries that were hellholes, that come here and then burn the American flag or fly the Mexican flag or something like that. Our country cannot survive that. And to just keep beating the drumbeat of multiculturalism. I have no problem with different cultures. I think they're interesting, they're great, and I encourage other cultures to be here in the United States. But we can't import mass amounts of people that hate the United States or want to burn our flag or want to just be like, hey, I want inside the United States, the country I just fled, I want to just start that same country inside the United States. That's not the way things should work. Rob is a modus, might be drunk. Yeah, my background here. I'm working on a background. Again, this is my work office, so I'm trying to do better. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. I know it sucks. Oh, you're leaving the state? That's too bad, Fluid Poor Art. It really is. But yeah, give me a call. I put my email up there. Okay, moving on. So I still got a lot to get to here. So I'm probably going to get to more of these, and I'll get to the chat after this. But I'll never finish if I keep going. I say yes in real big letters. Trump talked about vocational education. Absolutely. Absolutely. We need more vocational education. If you want to learn more about this, go to Mike Rowe. Go to anything he writes or any video with him, where he has all these organizations that's trying to get scholarships to blue-collar people, people that graduate high school and they're not seeking to go into the academia to get some degree in the humanities. They want to learn how to do something productive and work with their hands. And so the idea of pushing vocational scholarship is very important. On one side, you have Bernie Sanders saying free universities for all. For what? More indoctrination? More worthless degrees? More people getting degrees that have no benefit to the country whatsoever? Meanwhile, I personally, just at an anecdotal level, know company after company that says, look, in 5-10 years, when a bunch of our workers hit retirement age, we have no idea what we're going to do because young people don't know how to work with their hands anymore. Partly because there's all kinds of reasons. Partly because it could be hard work and no one's put the inspiration for why hard work's a good thing. Partly because it's never been taught to them to appreciate it or even how to do it. But we're going to have a huge labor shortage in those type of markets soon, which the establishment will use to their benefit to further try to wipe out the middle class. They'll say, oh, we need to import illegals to do the labor for cheap because we don't have Americans willing to do it. So I'm great on Trump. I hope he does a great job promoting vocational education. On healthcare, Trump talks about it. I think Trump can do better on healthcare. I get what he's talking about, the pill prices and stuff like that, and that's all good. But there could be more done by Trump. But I blame the Republicans more than Trump because Trump has routinely tried to bring up, hey, we need to do something with healthcare. And McConnell and others will tell him, hey, that's not an issue we want to deal with right now. We don't think it'll help us in the election. So let's put that in the back burner. So I give Trump credit for trying to deal with the issue. But honestly, I think that they could do better. Man, that was page 1. I got 3 pages. Good on Trump for being voracious against socialism again, saying he won't let it destroy healthcare. The corrupt media does not inform people that plans like Bernie Sanders would seek to kick millions, hundreds of millions of Americans that are happy or reasonably satisfied with their private healthcare now off of their policies. Many people don't know that. They think, yeah, I want everyone to have health care. They don't realize the consequence is that means your health care will radically change. You will no longer get the... I know, for example, people, that maybe you're a spouse and you have a job just for good health care. That job will now be worthless. Your husband or your wife, whoever's the primary breadwinner, is going to spend now 40 to 50% of their money in income taxes in order to pay for the health care. And your job where you're making peanuts just to have health care will basically be irrelevant. Or there are people that have worked really hard to get a job, to qualify for a job that they now have that has great benefits. That work is now all meaningless. You're going to have the same, your taxes are going to go through the roof, and the quality of your healthcare is going to diminish significantly. But the media doesn't talk about this. They just put the feels out there. Oh, everyone should have healthcare. It's such a great thing. It'll be free for everyone. That's a lie. They don't talk about the negative consequences, which would be many. Then he goes even further, and he talks about how the free healthcare for all would also be given to illegals, and how this would bankrupt the country and it'll lead to situations like in California. Every Republican should be pushing this non-stop. The utopia of the Democrats is San Francisco. It's fecal matter on the streets. It's piles and piles of hypodermic needles. It's homeless people just laying about, wallowing in sorrow, drug abuse. That's their utopia. That's what they want. Saying we're going to have all these free programs and then we're going to leave in as many people as we want. That's what they're saying, open borders. They say, no, we're not saying open borders. Again, every one of them said that they want to make it so it's not illegal. It's not a crime to come here illegally. It's only a civil penalty. That they would not deport people for coming here illegally. That they would not detain people that come across the border illegally. And that though it would be inhumane to not give those people human rights that we have in this country. Well, they're saying that healthcare is a human right, so they would get this healthcare. And they would probably get the free education that they're all talking about. College education and whatnot. That would bankrupt this country. We don't know by a point of 15 million people how many illegals are here. I mean, that's staggering. It could be 27 million people. That's close to 8-9% of the country. Maybe not. I don't know what the total, but it's a huge percentage. Factor in other people that won't be contributing that are on things like disability. Heck, the Green New Deal said the government will pay for people that are just unwilling to work. Who's going to pay the bill? It will bankrupt the country. When they bring up all these other countries that say, oh, but look at Sweden, look at all these Scandinavian countries that have healthcare for all. It works so well there. Yeah, those countries all enforce their borders. And when they don't, like Sweden, guess what? They're getting strapped financially as well because they're realizing, geez, when we imported 10% of our population that is massively different culturally and doesn't have employment like we expected, now we're having a tough time giving them all these free services that we tout. So now instead of paying 50% of your income to taxes, now you're paying 60, 70. And the people aren't liking it. Then we had, I don't know what the Democrats were protesting at this point, but much like Nancy Pelosi ripping up, they decided to yell and scream something that was absurd. So, who knows? Let me make sure I'm still live here. I am! Okay, moving on. And Trump powered right through their chant. Didn't mind them any attention. Exactly the way to handle these people. Then they quieted down. Then I saw that it showed Nadler. And I wrote, Nadler looks like an old man who's staying at an unfamiliar home, and he's up in the middle of the night cluelessly searching for a glass of warm milk. He's just like not a good sight. Oh, Nadler. Rush Limbaugh gets a shout out. I hope he recovers quickly, and they gave him the medal there. I thought that was a cool thing. Now look, Rush has advocated things that I've been against. I'm not saying Rush is right about everything, but what I will say about Rush is this. He's an inspiration to me in that I took stylistically from Rush a lot, even though I didn't listen to him a huge amount. One guy in front of a microphone talking for hours. It's what I do. Sound familiar? You know? And Rush is brave. Rush has taken a lot of stances. I mean, I saw a clip today of Rush in '94 defending Michael Jackson when everyone in the Republican Party was against him. He's been one of Trump's biggest defenders. He's been right about a lot of the corruption we see. So I wholeheartedly support Rush, and I thought it was great that he got a shout out and a medal. I also thought it was convenient. The camera didn't really pan over to the Democrat side while they were talking about Rush having cancer. If Twitter is any example of why, the amount of people celebrating Rush's cancer is disgusting. So here was what I thought was the best part then of Trump's whole speech. Now, it's best because I'm a debater, and I found this was something that I would do in debate. You could see Trump setting up the Democrats for a fall, right? He sets up an argument to have them agree, and then that agreement is then used directly against them in the next argument. So here's what happened. Trump starts talking about, he shows this baby that was born, I believe, at what? Was it 31 weeks, 21 weeks, something like that. 5 months, basically. A baby born at 5 months. A little over 5 months. And so he shows this baby, and everyone's applauding, and beautiful sight. Premature baby, it's now 2 years old, doing great. And I knew right away, I'm like, setting it up. He's setting up the third-term abortion argument, right? So I wrote, before he did it, I wrote at 9:54 p.m., I said, he's talking about a baby born at 21 weeks. He's about to lay the smackdown on the Dems wanting third trimester abortions. And then right on cue, the Dems fall for the trap. The next thing out of Trump's mouth is he says, and I'm passing this bill for prenatal care. And all the Dems, yeah, it's prenatal care. It's great. Yeah, support moms, prenatal care. And what's he transitioned right into? Neonatal research is what he said. And then boom, he says, and we're going to pass bills to end these disgusting third-term abortions. Absolutely. Do you see what he did? He showed the living example of why third-term abortions are so disgusting. Here's a baby that's 2 years old that the Democrats would say was just a clump of cells when it was born. But it wasn't. Now, make no mistake about it. Viability, to me, is the issue. Well, it's not even viability, but that's at least, I think, where any sane person should have the issue when it comes to abortion. My stance on abortion is complicated. I am not a life begins at conception person, and that aggravates the crap out of a lot of Republicans. Trust me, when I ran for office, I had people straight up tell me that I was going to burn in hell because I'm not a life begins at conception person. I'm okay for abortion until there's a certain benchmark made, whether that be brain activity or something, 6 to 8 weeks. And if a mother's life's in danger and things like that, I would be okay with the abortion. I know a lot of you are going to hate that and say, no abortion ever. And I get that. But me running for Congress, I would be the last person to have a say in that anyways, because it's a Supreme Court issue. And then if it gets, which it should be overruled, Roe v. Wade should be overruled. Not just because the abortion laws are heinous, but because it is absurd to claim that the Fourth Amendment somehow speaks to abortion whatsoever. Abortions were actually in existence when the Founding Fathers created the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So if they intended abortion to be covered in the Bill of Rights, it would have been. But it's not. So therefore, Roe v. Wade is an abomination and should be overturned. At which point it would go back to the states, and each state could decide an abortion, unless an amendment was passed. That would be the only time that you would have federal Congress being involved. But anyways, there's the truth for me. Now, I know most of my audience are Republicans, and it would be easiest for me to just say life begins at conception. But I hope that this shows to you that I trust and respect everyone enough to not lie to them, to pander to them. So that's my truth. But I am voraciously against these third trimester abortions. I find them unbelievably disgusting. And so Trump shows the living example of what's going on, of how disgusting their idea is. And they applaud, yay, and then bam. So very smart argument, very smart. It was perfectly set up. Let's see if I got any. I hear you, Fluid. Don't leave life. Look, here's my advice to people. Things get heavy. Like, we're talking about taking away the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. I'll speak to you as if even you're not religious. If you're religious, I think you can take solace in that there's a higher power. But let's assume there's not. Right? Let's assume this in a non-religious way. You have loved ones. You have your own personal integrity. You go to bed at night and you know you're a good person. That's more important than anything. So all of this stuff that comes at us, the consequences are heavy. They are. But don't let it get you down, right? And I know that's easy to say if you got a roof over your head and you're eating well, which clearly I'm eating well. But remember, you're a good person. You're doing great things. You're living your life, the people around you, if you do your best to make those lives better around you. And then if that's the case, then all this other stuff is secondary. Yeah, done playing around. The stance on late-term abortion is unbelievable. Oh, yeah, and Michael, you're absolutely right. Not $1 should go to any abortion clinic. And actually, that's something that I'm furious with the Republicans and even Trump about. The omnibus bills, the budgets that they're passing, still giving money to Planned Parenthood. The tree initiative Trump talked about sounds interesting. I don't know what it is. But this is something I argue about a lot. There are all sorts of environmental things that are real, that we could see right in front of us. Degradation of our forest, overfishing is an example, wildlife numbers of certain species dropping, water in Flint, Michigan that's still not fit to drink. These are disgusting, terrible things that we could actually have real-world fixes and do real-world policies to affect right now. But instead, all we talk about is climate change will kill us in 100 years, so give all of your money to the government. You shouldn't be allowed to eat burgers. The problem is when you talk about these hyperbolic, catastrophic things in the future that most likely won't happen, you ignore the real environmental problems we could actually make an impact on now. So kudos to Trump, and I hope they do push real environmental policies to affect things. Also, kudos to him for saying they're going to start pushing policies for rural America. Not just because that's where I'm from, but because we've been overlooked for so long. And clearly, the establishment has contempt for flyover country, clinging to their guns and Bibles so they can smell us at Walmart. So it's nice to know we have a president that at least, if nothing else, is paying lip service to us being good Americans. Remember, so the next part, Trump's going to start praising ICE agents. Remember, the Dems were upset with Trump and Trump supporters like myself calling out the FBI, for which we now know behaved in corrupt manner to spy on Trump and his campaign. So I was right and they were wrong. Trump was right and they were wrong. But while we were criticizing the FBI, they said, how dare you? You're jeopardizing sources and methods. Lives could be lost. You're hurting America by criticizing law enforcement. Yet at the same time, they call ICE agents Nazis. So just a little contradiction there I thought worth pointing out. Then Trump said that, he misspoke a little and said that California declared itself a, quote, stanctuary. S-T-A-N-K, sanctuary city, state. I thought that was an appropriate slip. Then he says that they're going to try to push laws that sanctuary cities and states could be sued if they refuse to comply with federal laws and someone ends up dying as a result. I'm totally for this. Now look, I'm a states' rights person. I'm a federalist. But there are certain things that only our federal government should have power and control over, such as defense, the military, or printing and coining money. They've given up that power to the private bank at the Federal Reserve, but that's something that should be reserved purely for the federal government. I don't want each state printing their own money. We tried that with the Articles of Confederation. It was an abject failure. So I'm fine with that. Another thing should be, it should be the federal government's responsibility to enforce the border, to say who is allowed and who is not allowed inside the country. States shouldn't each get to decide, this person's allowed in the state, but not allowed in the state next door, etc. It would be a disaster. So on that, the one issue, one of the few issues that should be the sole responsibility of the federal government, the Democrats say no. Yet in every other issue, they think that we should have massive federal government and states shouldn't have rights. It's nonsense. They recognized ICE agent Ortiz, Hispanic-looking gentleman. Remember, the Democrats think he's a Nazi. Not all, but many of the progressive wing. They think he's a Nazi. They want you to think all ICE agents are just white guys that look like me laughing as brown kids are in cages. But that's not true, as I said at the beginning of this video. The Dems predictably don't applaud Kavanaugh. No wonder, seeing as how they lied to try to ruin his life. So, no big surprise there. Glad to see they're still on that bandwagon. He defended the Second Amendment, as we already talked about. Space exploration, I think, is a great idea, and I applaud him for pushing for it. And then the next thing he does was he calls out Islamic terrorism. Isn't that a nice change? To have a president that's willing to call out Islamic terrorism. Now, I'll say it before and I'll say it again. My take on religion is this. I guess I call myself a Christian because I believe in being Christ-like. If you're a Christian, you know what Christ was like, right? I don't care if you're an atheist, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Wiccan, whatever. Your religion doesn't matter to me. Are you a good person? If you interpret your religion to live your life in a way that makes you a good and decent person, or you interpret your lack of religion to do that, that's fine. I'm not a religious scholar. I'm not here to try to change anyone's belief religiously. I respect each and every person's decision. All I care about is, what does your philosophy, what does your religion lead to you acting in your character in this world? So I'm not saying I hate all Muslims. I personally know some Muslims that are some of the nicest people I know. Great Americans. First generation immigrants, or one was a student that came over and went to school with me. I also have known some that were scary, that, for example, thought that we need to kill everyone in Israel. I said, what about the children? They said, well, compulsory military services happens in Israel, so every Israeli child we kill is just a future soldier. That's scary. That's not good, you know? So I'm not saying, oh, screw all Muslims. That's not what I'm saying. But let's be honest. There is a problem with Islamic terrorism, and there's a problem with political Islam. There is. I'm not going to, for fear of being called a racist, not call a spade a spade. It's absolutely true. It's disproportionately true among that religion as to other religions. There's only one religion that you can't mock or criticize or else you fear actually being murdered. We know what it is. And I'll speak up against that because I, if nothing else, defend the First Amendment and the idea of free speech adamantly. So it's nice to finally have a president that's willing to call out Islamic terrorism. Compare that to Obama, right? He actually made the claim. Which was it? Was it the, I think it was the killing of the Charlie Hebdo. Remember? This magazine in, was it France? Published cartoons of Muhammad. They also published cartoons of Jews and of Jesus, etc. No problems there. But with Muhammad, then they got attacked and murdered. I think that was the incident. And Obama said, not only did that murder have nothing to do with Islam, it had less to do with Islam than any religion. Obama said that, at least about one of the attacks. I could be wrong about that attack. But an attack with an Islamic terrorism, he said, not only did it not have to do with Islam, it had less to do with Islam than any religion. That is insane. So it's nice to have a president willing to call that out. Then the next comment I made, Trump talked about killing Baghdadi, and I said somewhere there are journalists at the Washington Post that are shedding a tear for the dead austere scholar al-Baghdadi. And then the next comment Trump makes, he brings up this woman who was widowed, he brings up a family whose daughter was taken prisoner by Baghdadi and sexually assaulted and then ultimately murdered. And talks about how this was occurring in Syria. And I said, wait a minute, you mean the rebels that were fighting Assad in Syria, that our intel agencies are backing, are actually Islamic terrorists like ISIS? No. Isn't that weird that Biden and Bernie and McCain and Flake and Romney, all these establishment people from the left and right, isn't it weird that they all supported these rebels? Huh? Isn't that strange? The establishment is disgusting. Of course that's what's going on. We were backing ISIS. Our intel agencies backed ISIS and al-Nusra and al-Qaeda in Syria, just like they backed them in Libya. How'd that work out? We backed them in Libya. Gaddafi pled to the world. Why is the United States and Western nations backing Islamic terrorists to overthrow me? They captured Gaddafi. They shoved a bayonet up his rectum, paraded him through the streets, tortured him. Hillary Clinton was asked about it. She said, we came, we saw, he died. Then we put an embassy in Libya. Remember that? It was in a place called Benghazi. And then those same noble rebels that we backed, they attacked that embassy, didn't they? And they killed our ambassador and other people. Then the Obama administration blamed it on some ridiculous YouTube video. So yeah, maybe we should stop backing Islamic terrorists. On one hand, I have to say that my Fourth Amendment rights need to be violated everywhere I go. I make this joke all the time. No one ever laughs as much as they should. You go through an airport and you feel like a 12-year-old girl with Joe Biden lording over you as they scan your body. All of that in the name of fighting Islamic terror. But when it comes to Libya or Syria, I have to arm the very same people I'm being told are trying to bomb me in the United States. I have to arm them to fight Gaddafi or Assad. And I thought it was good for Trump to speak directly to the Iranian people. He's right. Look, we need to remember, yes, many of them could be indoctrinated and, they've had generations of believing some vile things about LGBT or women or whatever, and they believe the leaders of their country. But don't forget, we should seek not to kill people, but we should seek to, give them a chance to understand that they've been indoctrinated and lied to. And then Trump says it blatantly. He says, look, I'm not trying to kill people. He talks about it in Afghanistan. He said many of the Afghani people are innocent. Agreed. That's what I'm just saying. I agree. He doesn't want to be the world police. He wants to end the war in Afghanistan. But the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, won't allow it. Remember, other than Ron Paul, I would say that the candidate that gives the most lip service, at least the mainstream candidate that gives the most lip service to being anti-war, is probably Bernie Sanders. Trump suggested pulling out of Syria. It's just 1,000 troops, and Sanders said it was the worst foreign policy decision Trump's made. He's leaving our ally, the Kurds, to die. The Turks, our allies in NATO, that we station nuclear weapons with, will kill the Kurds. Wait, what? The one time Bernie has a chance to put his money where his mouth is and be a candidate for peace, he wants to keep us in the foreign regime change war. So I get it. And I've seen people like Michael Tracy that tweeted, look, Trump could pull out of Afghanistan tomorrow if he wanted, but he won't. So he's a liar. But it's because the entire establishment's bearing down on him saying, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. So I hope Trump trusts his gut and gets better people around him and finally gets out of the quagmire that's Afghanistan. And then the next moment was that soldier reunited with his family, which it did. It brought a tear to my eye. Now, every time you see that, it's special. And especially when it's somewhere like the State of the Union. If you watch the State of the Union and you hate Trump, maybe you could have this takeaway. Okay, that has nothing to do with Trump or his policies, but everyone should recognize that was a beautiful moment. And shame on the few Democrats that weren't applauding for that. I thought the speech ended fantastically, talking about the settlers, American adventurism, the American frontiersman spirit. This fit in with the theme that he was talking about achieving greater economic success. The best is yet to come, going out into space. A great theme, and it really does speak. It's something that if you watched my live stream last night, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I believe that the reason our country is great is because of the great people that came before us, because we focused on the individual and personal liberty. I don't want to be part of the generation that gives that up, that lost this battle to corruption. That's why I do what I do. I want to give a voice to normal people, and I want to honor the memory of the great Americans of all colors, of all ethnicities, whether they be immigrants, whether they be people that were born here natively, whatever. The great Americans that came before me. I don't want to be part of the generation that lets this great experiment slip. And so this idea really spoke to me, I thought, the idea of settler and adventurism. And that's it. We did it. We made it through. WJ Speed left. Good night, man. Thanks for being here. Yeah, you'll be in my thoughts, Fluid Port. You really will. We'll be praying for you. Or thinking of you or whatever you do. Prayer or whatnot. But yeah, feel free to email me your number and I'd love to talk to you. So yeah, did anybody have any thoughts on the State of the Union that I didn't get to? I made it, face. Right. SJG, that's a great point. How do I put this? Okay. So here's the thing. I've been doing a lot of thinking, let me tell you a story that has nothing to do with the State of the Union, and then I'll try to tie it in. I ran for Congress in this special election. Anytime you're doing something like that, at least me, if you're getting involved in something that you kind of have an interest or an admiration for, you feel like you're going to get in and you're going to see all these impressive people. But that wasn't the case, really. Did you ever watch the movie Kingpin? It's a fantastic movie. One of the funniest jokes in the movie is, here's the plot of Kingpin. Woody Harrelson's a washed up ex-bowler who got his hand tore off by some corrupt people. And so he takes this Amish guy played by Randy Quaid, who's good at bowling, and he's taking him to this national bowling championship, and it's basically trying to scam the Amish guy out of his winnings if he wins. But the Amish guy doesn't know anything about the real world. So when they finally get to the venue where the championship's happening, the Amish guy goes, man, it's just so intimidating to be in a room with so many professional athletes. And it shows all these bowlers and they're guys with physiques like mine, just drinking beers and eating pizza. And the joke's like, he thinks these are these great physical athletes. That's kind of how I was getting into running for office. I was like, wow, it's to be amongst 24 people running with me, all of these great people. And there were some great ones and there were some smart people. But there are a lot of people that I felt that, let's just say this, I felt I was the best candidate for the job. I did, despite my zero experience. I felt that I knew more about the issues. I thought I knew more about the game of politics. And so it was weird. It makes you think, right? You're like, huh, that's weird. Well, anyways, at the end of this, there was someone who was a politician. He came up to me because I got to speak at the convention. And I don't mean to brag to say this. Well, I am bragging, I guess. But I gave the best speech, I think, by far. I got a standing ovation. No one else, everyone I got an awesome reaction. And I had candidates ask me, can you teach me to speak like you? And I told them, no, I can't. Because I speak like me. And you need to speak like you. You just maximize who you are. But to me, the number one thing you have, whether it be a voice to talk to someone else or anything, is your authenticity. I deal with people with developmental disabilities in my job. One of the things I tell with working with people in autism, it is an incredible skill that most of the people I've worked with that have autism have. They know when you're being authentic. They absolutely know it. There's an intuition that's amazing. If you're fake, they'll spot it like that in a heartbeat. So that means if you come in, you're having a bad day, you're honest. I'm having a bad day, I got a parking ticket, whatever. But if you try to be fake, it doesn't work. Now, why do I bring this up? The Democrats, and particularly personified Pelosi, is one of the fakest people you'll ever meet. And it just grates on me. It is, I would rather have, say what you will about AOC. Her policies are a disaster. Say what you will about Bernie Sanders. He's a hypocrite. He doesn't practice what he preaches, but he believes what he preaches. But Nancy Pelosi and Elizabeth Warren, so fake. So I have to watch Nancy Pelosi stand up and say, this is a somber, this impeachment's so somber. We're here with civility and respect for the process, and we're all about being civilized and respectful of the people that we disagree with. What a somber moment. That's the same woman that a week later is ripping up Trump's speech after the State of the Union. That's yucking it up right after she says about how somber it is about the impeachment. I mean, why couldn't she just be like, yeah, we're impeached, the son of a bitch, like Tlaib said. She said mother effer, actually. I won't go that far with that curse word. But no, she has to pretend, this brings me great sadness. I'm just such a somber, respectful person. Now compare that to Trump. People say Trump lies. Yeah, he lies. He's hyperbolic. He lies. I like women more than anyone else. I'm more respectful to women than anyone. Biggest crowd size ever. Not necessarily the best thing to lie about those stuffs, but it's basically harmless lies. But that man is authentic. And there's something likable about that. He's going up against the least authentic people probably ever to grace our political stage. They just can't be honest. They can't. They're so phony, and it's so obvious to anyone. So when Nancy Pelosi's pretending, no, don't yell while Trump's speaking, and then afterwards like, I mean, you're absolutely right, SJG. Yeah, I heard Evil Smell the Republicans were chanting 4 more years. I hear you, Fluid Poor Patriot. And that's like, I mean, that's troubling. I don't know, like, we all, like, when it comes to health anomalies and things like that, I can't speak to that, There are good people to speak to, and hopefully you can speak to a professional that can help with stuff like that, because I'm really not qualified to speak. But just know that, I thought you did great work with the Virginia thing, and I thought your channel's really good, and that you are a patriot, and I think you're a good person. And so for what you can, try to focus on that and try to keep your spirits up. But I honestly, I'm not qualified to speak, particularly when it comes to ailments and things like that. So it's up to you all. I'll throw it up to you. I'll probably be on for another 40 minutes. We can either take calls. I could have SJG back on to talk about things specifically, or I could talk about the Iowa caucus. So I'll give you guys a choice here. I'll give you a minute. But yeah, just to wrap up with the State of the Union. Yeah, Ziggy says, amazing State of the Union. Changed my mind. Absolutely agree. But hey, don't say I'm just a Trump sycophant. I gave you a couple areas I thought I didn't particularly like what he had to say. But if I had to give it a ranking, I would say it was an A to an A+. One of the best State of the Unions ever heard. I thought last year's State of the Union was amazing. That's why I had every confidence that he would give a great State of the Union this time, and he did not disappoint. It may have even surpassed last year's. I thought that he hit the exact right note of speaking to his base, but also reaching out to moderates and other people that will help. And again, like I said at the beginning, this is coming off good news in Gallup polls that show that he's 3 percentage points higher than Obama was at this point in his presidency. And Obama won pretty convincingly. So, watching trains go by. You missed all kinds of great stuff. We talked about how handsome I am and how I have the best YouTube channel on the internet. So says the coin that I flipped. And then I just made awesome points about the State of the Union the whole time. Anyone have a, right, Ziggy, you're right, the economy. Now, here's the problem with the economy, right? I look for the Federal Reserve to try to purposely tank the economy before the election. Because I think they would rather see Trump out. Now, it depends. They won't do it if Bernie's the nominee, because they don't want Bernie. But if it's Buttigieg or someone else, Bloomberg, they might. But it was an awesome State of the Union. So, SJG, do you want to call in, man, if you're still listening? Feel free. So we'll give him a second to respond. If not, I'll move on to the Iowa caucus. Yeah, I agree, Recon 5. That was a great part of the speech, too. Sanctuary cities will be held liable for deaths. Again, if I had to pick a favorite part just from a strategic standpoint, there was something about, I knew it. As soon as he showed the premature baby, I'm like, yes, he's going to attack late-term abortion. So he shows the premature baby. Then he talks about neonatal health care, and all the Democrats are applauding. Because think about that position it puts them in. Neonatal health care is all about the idea of keeping the fetus healthy. Showing the premature baby is showing that the fetus is a living thing, even at 21 weeks. So how could you on one hand applaud that and say, that's beautiful, this baby was born, but then on the other hand say, but it's just a lump of cells that if you want to abort, it's okay. Brilliantly strategically set up. Watching trains go by, I agree, and that's one of the criticisms I have with Trump. He needs to do more against the Fed. Now, can he do it unilaterally? No. So he needs help. That's why you should elect me in 2022. But yeah, he needs to go after the Fed. They have too much power, and it's not what was designed by our founding fathers. Also, I don't like the deficit spending that Trump does. So, SJG, you still there, man? Let me text him if you all don't mind. I have his number. So we'll give him a text. Yeah, right. Well, that's a great point, David Woodruff. Right? Though in that instant, it would be the states or the city taxpayers that would be paying, but maybe that would convince the states and the cities that are sanctuary cities for the people there to vote those morons out that made it sanctuary cities. But yeah, that's something that I always say. It's like, we cheer when like FBI corruption, Carter Page should sue the FBI. Absolutely. Carter Page deserves hundreds of millions of dollars for how the FBI violated his rights. The same with George Papadopoulos. But the FBI doesn't have money. The FBI money is just our tax dollars. You think they care? Of course not. Oh, I took my headphones off. Call back. I'm an idiot. I took my headphones back off and I'm waiting for him to call. It's great. That's great stuff. I'll call you. How about that? Epic. For someone who talks about common sense so much, I'm quite the moron at times, huh? Let's see if he can. Moron. I heard.
What's up, man?
Hey, who's this?
This is SJG.
What's up? I thought so. Yeah, I took my headphones off, then I'm texting you. Hey, man, you want to call in? And meanwhile, you've probably been on the line for 10 minutes. So, yeah, what'd you think? Did I do a good job running down the State of the Union?
You did. Well, I caught the first part, to be honest here. I had to wash my dog because he puked on himself earlier tonight. So
well, that's a lot.
I caught the first part.
That's a lot what I was like puking on myself. No, I thought it went good. I was saying, see what you think about this. We haven't talked about this yet. Strategically, just as a fan of debate and speaking, I thought my favorite part of the speech was he shows the baby that's now 2 years old that was, 21 weeks premature born. Did you see that part?
Right.
And then he transitions right from that. He's like, and we're going to support neonatal care. And the Democrats are all applauding. Right. I knew at that moment he's setting up the criticism of third trimester abortion, right? Because he's basically showing them, you said that she was a lump of cells that should have been aborted. You're saying that neonatal care is irrelevant because it's just a lump of cells. But look at this beautiful baby that made it. I thought that was brilliant the way he set that up.
It was brilliant. No, he trolled him so many times and just flat laid it. The more I've been watching a lot on it and whatnot, you know, and the more I'm watching reactions and everything. I just didn't have time to get out and do a video tonight, but on it really. But the more I just loved that freaking speech. Like I said before, I wasn't thrilled with him, you know, the whole Venezuela stuff, but whatever. Everything else I thought he knocked out of the park, and I thought was just spot on, you know. And so, yeah, I was very happy. I still just can't get over her ripping that up at the end and acting so holier than thou when she's shushing her, you know, her party to be quiet when they would start to, you know, raise their voice, and she was giving them the Nancy glare, you know, the Nancy stare down. But then she has the cojones to stand up and to rip up that thing right when it was right, the camera right on her. It's like, are we like 5 years old? I mean, what? It still got me frustrated.
Well, and I don't know if you heard me saying there. Can everyone hear SJG? By the way, I'm hoping you can. Just someone give me a shout out if you can hear him on the phone. But yeah, one of the things I was saying here at the very end, I don't know if you caught, was the idea of authenticity. I think that's something that both of me and you have. Like, when they're watching our channel, they can believe we are who we are, right? Like, we're going to be honest.
Right.
She is one of the least authentic people I've ever made. I can even respect people who I disagree with, but I perceive as authentic. Like, I don't like a lot of Andrew Yang's policies, but Andrew Yang seems like an authentic guy, right? Like, I get the vibe. He's not BSing you. He's not selling out, at least not yet. So, yeah, I mean, that's what grates on me. I agree with you 100% about Pelosi.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like I was trying to think of some funny lines, like I want to do like some parody songs, some just like little, I was going to do them, but I don't have enough energy right now. But like I was thinking it should go something like, she ripped it up for a publicity stunt. Everybody knows it's because she is a nasty.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. So,
you know, just because she is just, I haven't even watched the news coverage of it or any clips, you know, but you know that's going to be just glorified. And the Democrats and the lefts are just wetting themselves that she did that, you know, just. So, but man. Oh, go ahead.
No, it was a tough decision for me. Last year, the way I did the State of the Union was, instead of doing a reaction video immediately, I watched MSNBC's reaction and then did a reaction to their reaction. So I thought about that. But you're absolutely right. I guarantee if we turned on MSNBC, Rachel Maddow was doing something like this. Such a truly powerful moment with a strong woman wearing white, a symbol of purity, stood up to Donald Trump's corruption. Like, it's like, get out of here. It's so stupid. And by the way, if a Republican does it under the Democrats, also stupid, right? Like, let's just be clear about it. Right. Childish and stupid.
Yeah, completely, man.
Real quick,
Completely.
what did you think? Like, just to talk a little about the Iowa caucus here. What did you think about that insanity? Anything stand out to you on it?
That, to me, I've been listening to that today, is can we get any more blatantly, election rigging, and that the DNC cannot handle the thought that Bernie has so much support, that they are pulling these kind of games. It's like, it's so transparent to me and to so many people, but I don't know. There's so many things I could say on that, but it's crazy. So what's the final word on that? Who actually won it? Was it Buttigieg?
Yeah, I think he won. If the numbers are official, I think that he won the most delegates, but Bernie won the popular vote. Ironically, the same party that's complained, oh, it should just be the popular vote. Now, of course, just like in 2016. They complain about the Electoral College. They complain about, wanting a popular vote. Yet they have super delegates, which are basically the most undemocratic thing you could think of. But
right.
Yeah, that's how it looks.
What about the coin flip?
Oh yeah, did you see my video?
Yeah, I did.
I'm sorry, you have a great channel, but the coin doesn't lie, my friend. Best channel on YouTube. And I'll challenge anyone. I'll flip it all the time. You just there it is. It's heads again. Who would have thought? I mean, it's unbelievable. I like. First off, let's look at this in sections. One, the flip was obviously corrupt and cheating. Second, not one person standing there demanded to say, wait a minute, let me see what just happened here. But then even beyond all of that, I've had people from different countries respond to that video saying wait, what? They actually do a coin flip in the first place?
I know. I know.
It's mind blowing.
And then what? And the other thing that's mind-blowing is just that they're the ones who say that election interference is that Donald Trump and the GOP is rigging the election. Dude, it's going to be a landslide in 2020. I mean, after that State of the Union and listening to him, it's a landslide.
Well, think about the progression. Think about the news cycle, what this week will be. And I know we were on the Patriot panel last night. We were talking about not being thrilled with McConnell pushing back the impeachment vote until tomorrow. But here's the news cycle you get. Monday, absolute disaster for the Democrats in the caucus. Tuesday, Trump knocks it out with the State of the Union. Wednesday, acquitted by the Senate. I mean, you could not ask for a worse week for the Democrats. Now, I'm still going to be vigilant because one thing you can't underestimate is you surely could look at the Democrats and say corruption and incompetence, but that corruption, they're going to pull out all the tricks to try to take Trump down. So I'll still be vigilant, but I agree with you. If it was just a level playing field, Trump would crush at this point in 2020.
Well, I think even in spite of it being an unlevel playing field. Sorry, I was talking about that.
Oh, no problem.
I think even in being that it's not that they are pulling every trick out of the book that they have in their playbook to unseat him, that he is. It's still going to be. Here's what I'm legitimately concerned about, and I really hope I'm wrong, but my legitimate concern on this, and some people might think I'm a big conspiracy theorist or whatever, but they haven't been able to get him out with impeachment. They weren't able to get him out with the Russia collusion. They're not able. They can't stop his support. He's filling stadiums. He's gained the black vote. He's gained a Latino vote. He's gained all of these things. And this isn't because I'm looking his bunghole. There's certain things he's done I don't like, right? And I'm still I've been really getting into this whole establishment, CFR, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, kind of deep state stuff. I've been really looking into that stuff lately, and I still get worried at times, crap, am I getting snowed by Donald Trump? Right. Is he still part of this whole thing? And I don't believe he is, and I want to believe he isn't, and I don't believe he is. So, and after tonight, I just got energized again. I love the way he just can charge a crowd, and he's totally his personality is so unpresidential, and I love it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because he's just real.
And that's one of the reasons
But
they
anyway,
hate him. Yeah, that authenticity.
yeah, and that is the other. That's what always brings me back to no, I don't think he is, because the establishment, the globalists, right, the people that really want this one world government, and that's not a conspiracy theory. That is the actual thing.
Agreed.
When you watch, I mean, that is a thing that like back to Bush pushed it, and before that, Zygmunt Brzezinski, I can't ever
Yeah,
say
me
his
neither.
name. All these other, you know what I'm saying? They also pushed this, and that has been an agenda for going back decades and decades. That has been an agenda, right? And Trump, and you can't have a one world globalist government when you have national identity. They need to destroy. America was set in place and was who we were. It was a useful tool in the idea or in the minds of the globalists for decades, right? That we'll keep America strong. We'll do all this with America, but then when the time comes, we have to undercut it. We have to tear it down so we can usher in the one world government. Well, Trump and all these other stooges in the past have played along with that game plan, right? And Trump comes along, who's not part of the establishment, who's not part of this whole game in the club, and he has thrown a wrench into it because he's awakened the true American people that are like, we don't want this shit. So if they can't get him out, right, my honest fear is they're going to take him out, and that is legitimately, and I hope I'm wrong, but that is legitimately my fear that between now and the election, or shortly after, once he landslide wins, I will be God be with him. If he makes it through till 2024 or 2025, whatever, I don't know. That's just the worry I have, because what do they have left? What do they have left? I mean, I guess there's still going to be tricks in the bag of smearing him and saying he did all this, but all those things are losing their momentum and losing their power because they've all been played on him before. So what do they have left? What do they have left? It's to actually JFK the guy.
Well, and I don't.
That's my word.
That's always a possibility. It certainly is. But one of the things I think counters that, and this is something I say all the time when you see, and I'm forgetting names right now, but one of the problems is when you have dirt on these corrupt globalists in the establishment is when you try to keep it close to the vest, that's when something bad ends up happening to you. Trump's advantage is he's been so in your face against them, it's hard for them to take him out, because here's what happens. I say this all the time. It's like the movie Gladiator. You remember the scene where he's like, after he reveals himself to the emperor and they're sitting in the gladiator camp and he's afraid to eat his dinner because he thinks it's poisoned. And so his like big German friend eats it and acts like he's joking, and then they all laugh. And the black guy looks at him and says, "You have a great name. They have to kill your name before they kill you." I kind of feel like that with Trump, because as much, and they might decide to do something crazy. That's not beyond the realm of possibility, but they have to weigh their options to know deep down, if they do that, the sleeping giant that's awakened will become tenfold strong. And for one Trump, there will be 100 people that step up to replace him. They won't be like him. They won't have his resources. They won't have all the talents he has, but they'll have different talents. And they're going to be enraged, and they're going to be passionate, and they're going to understand the corruption that they're dealing with. And now it's going to be a real life or death thing. And so I think that that is a last resort that they know they will pay a heavy, heavy, heavy price. Doesn't mean they might not try it, but it would be a heavy price. So that's another reason why it's incumbent on us to show our support for how disgusted we are at the establishment, to avoid something like that.
But if they're looking for some sort of massive, which I think like these deep state people are, you look for like different false flags that have happened throughout our, if they're looking for something, if they're looking to create something to create massive civil unrest so then they can implement some sort of crazy draconian authoritarian gun grabbing, whatever, or even the major globalists are looking for an opportunity then when we have major unrest to attack us with a cyber attack or whatever. And I know I'm getting a little conspiratorial
That's
here,
fine.
but I'm saying, what I am saying is that there is, God knows that's been a plan for some time. They need another 9/11 of sorts, right? I mean, think about how what would happen in the U.S. if he was assassinated, and with the reach of technology to where it is now, and as many people that are hip to fact, checking facts and researching and are on those things right out of the get-go and debunking them and showing, it would be so hard to contain, so hard to spin maybe that's a benefit of why there's a less likelihood of it to happen. But there would be so much unrest and so many things going absolutely. The markets, I mean, talk about what would happen to the markets.
Right.
A worldwide financial, that'd be a great way to trigger that for the financial collapse that the globalists would love to usher in, right? Would be I don't know, man. There's so many thoughts that are possible.
And this is a good conversation. I love talking about, like, again, who are we to ever criticize someone, quote, being a conspiracy theorist when the mainstream narrative is Epstein killed himself? So I don't mind talking about this stuff at all. What I would say is this, though. Like, I agree with you. We know that this has been with corrupt establishments throughout history, not just in the United States, not just the globalists, the Rothschilds. We can see going back centuries, but even before then, like, this has been the narrative. This has been in the toolbox of corrupt establishments. Is this create unrest as an excuse to go in and strip people of rights? What I would say is, if that's your plan, I would warn the globalists this. You have to make sure that the unrest you're creating isn't unmanageable. So when you talk about unrest, you might want 10 to 15% of the population engaging in some unrest, which then you're still able to quash comfortably because you have the numbers on your side to do so. But it's enough to have an excuse to go in and quash. But if it's 40 to 50%, that's a different ballgame. And I think that's where we're getting with Trump. I think that Trump's greatest success is I'm not saying it's necessarily 4D chess or that he's perfect or anything like that, but by the very nature that he was an outsider, that their hubris said, oh, this guy has no chance to win. We'll just be corrupt blatantly in the open and he'll have no chance to win. Him winning threw a wrench like never before into these establishment plans that I've seen in my lifetime. And so they've been trying to play catch up ever since. And every time they claw at something, it makes it worse for them. Look at the impeachment. Look at the Russian hoax. And more and more people are waking up. So I'm afraid at this point, not afraid, I'm hopeful at this point that the ship has sailed and trying to take him out and that the unrest would be so massive. But on the other hand, you could make a compelling story that some lone Antifa nut killed him, right? And that's how they would play it out if it happened. They would say, oh, hey, look at the bike lock guy. Look at you. And they're setting up, like, did you see they just arrested a woman at Mar-a-Lago the other day here?
Yeah. I know we're whiteboarding here, but then think about this. Then that would also be an awesome opportunity to clamp down on internet speech, right? Because look what they did with the coronavirus, where they like what Twitter did with the Zero Hedge article. They pull that off when, it would be a perfect opportunity because, the conspiracies would fly. So what would they do to the internet? What would they do? They would clamp it down. They would be shutting down, people that are spreading, and they've been setting this up for how long? Conspiracy, putting the spin or putting the screw nuts to the conspiracies. That's not what I meant to say, but you know what I mean. Like they've been dogging down on anybody who talks about anything conspiratorial. And so then all of a sudden they've been setting that up for a while. So, something like this happened and people start pushing, this alternative narrative, they would shut that down. And then you add to the fact that right now we're that this whole pandemic that has just, like the cards could be aligning for this deep state to pull something crazy right now. But here's the other thing that I keep wondering on my mind. I kept thinking about this. What has happened with the Barr investigation? Because I'd keep wondering, is he saving that? Do they have that ready to go that is going to just truly make some dominoes fall? And are they going to save that for like their October surprise or their September surprise or something like that, where they drop that, where it implicates all these Democrats and it proves that Trump wasn't lying and all this stuff? Where's that at? I thought you might know on that. Where's the Barr investigation at right now?
So I think that that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, the question is, are they just going to release information that implicates the Democrats and not charge anyone? Or are they going to actually drop charges? So I'm hoping it's the latter, because as far as I'm concerned, if the criminals that were involved in that conspiracy aren't charged, then the corruption will continue unabated. But it's kind of something that I slightly disagree with Trump about. My preference is someone who, more than I'm team first, more than I'm interested in who wins politically, I want to see the corruption ended. So from my point of view, This information As soon as it was available for Trump to release it, should have been made available. This is how corrupt it is. But I understand Trump's playing the game, right? And he understands the amount of corruption he's against. So he's strategically holding back on releasing that information until it will have the maximum benefit to him politically. So that is going to be sort of a September, October surprise. But I mean, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be, you saw what the Democrats did with Kavanaugh. I mean, the amount of dirt and incredibly scandalous stories that are going to be brought come September and October by the Democrats and the establishment is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. And so Trump is holding back some, I think, ace in the hole with the ability, not even Barr necessarily, but Trump's ability for the stroke of a pen to say, you know what, I'm releasing all these documents. Here, let's leave the American people see what Obama, his agencies were up to when it came to me. And I think that's I think that you'll see a lot of this impeachment stuff come back to bite the Democrats even harder because they're spinning this narrative over and over again. How dare Trump try to get a foreign country to investigate his opponent? Well, wait until we find out how Stephen Halper was working for British intelligence. Wait until we find out how Joseph Mifsud was working for Western intelligence. Like, that's going to be devastating for people to realize. And he's already set the chips beautifully where the Democrats and Mueller and Comey and the establishment and everyone in the FBI has over and over said, no, it wasn't the Steele dossier that started the Russia collusion investigation. It was George Papadopoulos. It was this guy, Joseph Mifsud, that talked to Papadopoulos. That was the start of it. And so if we find documents that show Mifsud was working for UK intelligence, how in the hell do you say we're going to impeach Trump for talking to Zelensky when the Obama administration worked with UK intelligence to completely manufacture a scandal that led to a 3-year investigation into Trump? So I think that he set it up beautifully if that's what the evidence shows. So let's see if Trump releases it.
So yeah, that's super. That is, and he may be, like you're kind of saying, in some ways, and I don't know. I don't necessarily like to say 3D chess either, because I think, or 4D chess, because I think they can get overplayed. But he could be giving more rope to them and saying, yeah, just keep on pushing your narrative about these things. We want to get you all on record many times saying how X, Y, and Z is so terrible. Just keep doing it. But would they keep doing it if they knew they were that Barr was investigating this and that they are guilty of it? It seems like they'd try to distance themselves from that and wouldn't be pushing so hard on Trump if they knew that some of these very things they're accusing him of are about ready to come out.
Right. Well, but they've set it up, like, they're already trying to set up, Barr's corrupt. They already set up that Huber's corrupt, right? Like, they're trying to set up that, these people are partisan and they're corrupt. So you can see them laying the groundwork for when this information comes out, don't trust it. It's just all partisan hackery. Remember, they said over and over, how dare Barr even accuse and demand an investigation from Huber? Now, I remember when during the Mueller investigation, they actually said it was obstruction of justice for Trump to even complain about an investigation targeting him. Yet months later, here we see the Democrats once more doing the exact same thing they accused Trump of. So, I mean, it's a crap show, but, that's why you have to be careful. Like, and it's one of the things I've learned through debate that I think, like, it's helped me uniquely look at these things is you have to understand when you're defending your side, always try to be authentic and try to not say, I'm just defending my side. And then when the shoe's on the other foot, you change. So, for example, when I'm talking about the corruption of the intel agencies, a strategic person that doesn't like Trump would be like, okay, but if you're so skeptical of the intel agencies, why would you support Trump and his stance on Venezuela? Hence, why I think people like me and you, we have the consistent position. We don't trust the CIA and the FBI when it was corrupt against Trump, and we don't trust them when they say things that benefit Trump, right? Like, I demand proof. That's the standard I have. So I think that the Democrats, because they're so lazy, look, if you want the best example of this, watch a gun debate. Find a gun expert debating an anti-NRA person. It is and I mean almost universally, it is one of the most pathetic things you'll ever see. The anti-gun person has almost no facts, because they've got away in their life all through academia, everywhere, just saying feelings, 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 and no one's ever challenged them. When they actually get in the intellectual ring with someone who has facts, they have no idea what to say. It's the same way here. The Democrats, for so long, have got away with controlling the narrative and allowed to be blatant hypocrites that once that starts crumbling down because of independent content creators like me and you, they just have nothing. They don't know how to defend themselves. Like if Adam Schiff got on and talked to me or you for 5 minutes, he would look foolish. He would have no, like it would only take, and we're not, well, I can't speak for you, but I'm no overly intelligent person. We're just average people. And so, like, I think that's where we need to win this information battle. So, wait, man, thanks for coming.
Yeah, and
go ahead,
No, I was just going to say, and that's the one thing that, like, going back to that CFR, Trilateral, Bilderberg, they own the media, and like we've talked about, they own the media, they own the narrative, and so it is so important for us to be out doing what we're doing, even if we're not perfect or we're not the smartest guys on the block. It's like we're bringing up common sense that other people are like, yeah, that's what I've always thought. Yeah, that's true, and going against the narrative, and that's why they hate us, and that's why they're doing everything they can to. But technology is just going to keep advancing. They're not going to be able to. They're not really going to be able to shut it. There's always going to be something that happens. So, anyways, thanks, brother, for letting me call in and then calling me back, whatever. And we'll talk on Hangouts. Here
and I put everyone check out SJG Perspectives channel. I put the link up there, and we might be doing a video Saturday. Is that something we're going to try to do again?
Saturday is my birthday. Well, Sunday's my birthday, and so my wife's birthday's on Friday or Thursday, whatever the 6th is. Maybe that's Thursday. Better make sure I'm right on that. So we're gonna Sunday night. I'll be back Sunday night. So maybe Sunday night I can give you a ring and I'll jump on, but I won't be on Saturday. But it'd be cool. I know some people are looking forward to it, so maybe you can talk to Drone and you guys can at least carry on the.
Okay, yeah, but it's something we're going to try to do most Saturdays, if not.
Yeah, every Saturday mostly we're going to do it. Yeah, so yeah, Saturdays is our in the afternoons. That's our times, and I'm going to be a little more sober here going forward.
Yeah,
so
I can't keep jumping again every night. So.
Yeah, no. So all right, thanks.
All
Robert.
right, hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Awesome as always. Take it easy.
Later, brother. Okay, bye.
So yeah, just to wrap up here, and maybe I'll take a call or two here in a second. Milo, yeah, I saw what you're saying. I don't know. It's a Google Voice number, so I know it works through a normal phone. I see no reason if you have any kind of computer program that allows to make call outs why it wouldn't work on there. Unfortunately, because of my setup tonight, I wouldn't be able to do like we did before with Google Hangouts. But Milo, if you wanted to call in a future episode, absolutely, I'd love to have you, and we could set up something with Google Hangouts or StreamYard or something like that. Yeah, so I'll just real quick talk about what went on with the Iowa caucus. If you watch my video on this, I thought I did a pretty good job, 10-minute video. By the way, I have the best YouTube channel on the internet, according to this coin I flipped, much like the great people at the Iowa caucus. Oh yeah, heads again. I win again. Greatest YouTube. You can check that out. There's a 3-minute video on that coin flip. It's unbelievable, blow your mind. And then just on the Iowa caucus. So here's my feelings on it. So let's approach this from two different angles. One is the conspiratorial angle, and second is a non-conspiratorial angle. So let's take the conspiratorial angle. I hate to say I told you so to Bernie and his supporters. So if this really was a conspiracy to harm Bernie Sanders, look, he was going to be getting momentum. The polls were going to show that he was winning. So Buttigieg stepped in and got that poll removed. Said the font size was incorrect, so people couldn't see his information on the poll. So that happened. Then we found out Buttigieg was one of the big sponsors and financial donators to the app that failed. That was also an app ran by Robbie Mook, who was Hillary Clinton's, one of her campaign directors, who screwed Bernie in 2016. So why wouldn't they screw him again? So all of that adds up to something being a conspiracy. Then we can see how CNN at the last debate screwed over Bernie by taking Elizabeth Warren, a known liar who lied about Bernie, saying that a woman couldn't win the election. They took her side. They implied that she was telling the truth and Bernie was lying. They brought on body language experts to show the same thing. All nonsense. And Bernie supporters have been saying, hey, it's not fair. The media's corrupt. CNN's corrupt. Hey, what's going on? Hey, the DNC's corrupt. They're screwing Bernie again. I told you. This is the problem. And look, I'm friends with Bernie supporters. I've been on this channel for 2 years saying, feel like I'm talking to myself sometimes saying, listen to my friends on the left, stop cheering for deep state corruption against Trump. Stop cheering for media corruption against Trump. Stop cheering for DNC corruption against Trump, because the exact same type of attacks will be used on your people, on who you support in the left. They did it to Jill Stein. They're doing it to Tulsi Gabbard. Now they're doing it to Bernie Sanders again. Predictably. They're actually still going to the Russia playbook. Go on Twitter right now. There are people, person after person I saw on Twitter, blue checkmark saying, if you're spreading the hashtag Mayor Cheat, that Pete Buttigieg cheated, you're clearly pushing for Russia's disinformation campaign. Back to the exact same playbook. Now I'll defend Bernie. Someone who I don't like. These attacks are ridiculous. The corruption against him is ridiculous. But I have the integrity and I have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The evidence to back up that I'm consistent in my position, that I can defend politicians that I like and even those I dislike against this corruption. You don't have that, Bernie. You're a hypocrite. You cheered on the corruption from those groups when it was against Trump, and so did most of your supporters. And so now you have reaped what you sowed. Just like the college administrator that pushes the SJW that eventually demands the college administrator be fired. That's what the Democratic Party is becoming. Bernie Sanders has reaped what he sowed. But I'll still defend you, Bernie, despite that. I still want a fair system and a fair election, even in the DNC primaries, even for someone I don't like Bernie. But you know, it adds up. It looks like it could possibly be corrupt for me. Now, I don't have proof of the corruption, but like I said, Hillary's former campaign staffer was the person in charge of the app. Buttigieg financed it. Buttigieg got the poll put out right before it. CNN's been going after Bernie with knives out. Buttigieg, before results were even released, was releasing Twitter post after Twitter post how he was the victor. All of it adds up to something pretty shady to me. And history will teach us, yeah, they screwed Bernie in 2016. Why wouldn't they do it again? Now let's take the non-conspiratorial angle. The Democrats, these same people, right? They want total control over our healthcare system, our energy sector, a vast majority of our economy. I mean, read the Green New Deal. It's literally talking about the most massive expansion of government power in the history of this country. Parts of the Green New Deal include things like this: reparations, selectively applying government jobs to people based on victimhood status, ending things like farming, as far as like cows, ending ownership of private vehicles. You wouldn't be allowed to own a car anymore. Guaranteeing money even for people who don't want to work. Retrofitting every building in the United States to run off renewable energies. A complete overhaul of infrastructure for every single building in the United States. This is almost total control of our economy, energy, and healthcare sectors. They already have it at the education, but they want even more of that. Free education for everyone, even college years. Massive control. All of this controlled by these same people that ran the Iowa caucus. The same Democrat people. They couldn't figure out how to count votes. 1,700 people. They couldn't figure it out. Now, I want you to think about this. It gets even more crazy. The Democrats claim this is the biggest election in our lifetime, right? They're doing everything possible to win. They've known for 2 years that this caucus is coming. Longer than that, actually, but ever since the 2018 election, the day after, they had to be getting ready for this caucus. It's the first one. It's not one that occurred in the middle. It's the first one. Probably the most important one. They have billionaires like Bloomberg running. Billionaire backers backing the DNC. All of the tech giants that normally create apps also backing the DNC. They couldn't figure out how to create an app to count. 4,000 years ago, we had the abacus. You know what it did? Helped you count. Second and third graders know how to count to over 1,000. But the DNC, the people that want total control over our government, massive increase in government control, they don't know how to count to 1,700. and do things like percentages. I don't know anything about creating apps, but I would assume that one of the most rudimentary first computer programs you would learn to develop is one that could simply count. That seems as easy as it gets. And they messed it up. This is if we're assuming it wasn't a conspiracy. Why would I trust the very people that can't count to 1,700 to have total control over our government economy? Our healthcare system. You saw with Obamacare, they screwed up the rollout of it. They screwed up the website. Why would I vote to give these people power? I mean, the incompetence is staggering. And again, this wasn't like, oh, this was the 13th caucus, so it got lost in the shuffle. It's the first one. It's the biggest one. They've been preparing for 2 years, and they screwed it up. This is why we want limited government, because whether it be corruption or incompetence, it doesn't work. I mean, it's really unbelievable. Then they're doing coin flips. The guy's flipping the coin 4 or 5 times. Again, like I said, look at everything that's wrong with that. One, a coin flip? Are you serious? Remember when Hillary won umpteen coin flips in 2016 to win delegates? So that's back. Buttigieg's winning all these coin flips. So one, they use a coin flip. They couldn't, like, thumb wrestle or something. Get a PlayStation in there. Let's get some, competitive Tetris or something to decide it. Are you kidding me? Hot dog eating contest. Do it the American way. A coin flip? Unbelievable. To decide who might be the president of the United States? A coin flip? That's the best system you could come up with? And then, so the stakes are high, right? The guy flips the coin. He rotates it like 5 times in his hand. Now, presumably, there's people standing around, some for Klobuchar, some for Buttigieg. You mean to tell me not one person was like, whoa, let me see what the coin says. Watch this. I won't even flip the coin in my hand. You ready? Tails. There, that's it. And you're watching there, you're like, wait, tails? Did you even look? How do I know it was tails? You're just going to take my word for it? No one even looks at the coin. And then on top of that, the only person who looks is the guy who flipped it. He's like, heads. Those are the people, these are the people that said, oh, how unprepared Trump is. Oh, he's devastated. It's incompetence in his administration. This is the Democratic Party? I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I heard people say a 2-sided coin. Yeah, Adrian Kennedy. Now, I can't tell you much about this, but you want to know about Mayor Pete giving money to the developer that developed the Shadow app. Yeah, I don't know how that's legal, but I've seen 3 sources report that. I know that Robbie Mook, who was formerly in Hillary Clinton's campaign, was one of the people in charge of the company that developed it. I don't know how it's legal. Now Biden's supposedly filing an injunction to stop the results from the Iowa caucus mattering. And you kind of see his point. It does seem corrupt or so incompetent it shouldn't count. But I mean, the results are devastating for Biden. 4th place. And look, Elizabeth Warren's a fake progressive, don't get me wrong. But the fact that her and Bernie were 1st and 3rd, respectively, in the popular vote, the progressive wing of the party is huge. It is. Now, I know I don't like socialism. I don't like that progressive, the social justice-y thing. But as I explained last night in my live stream, I try to give the benefit of the doubt to the actual voters. You won't see me insult voters. You won't see it. And I'm glad Trump does it. He'll pick on Bernie, he'll pick on AOC, but he's not like, screw the AOC voter. There is a populist movement on the left. That's why they're embracing things like socialists, because the truth is, most normal Americans, regardless if you're on the right or the left, the establishment has screwed you over. So you're seeking people that are outside of that establishment. Bernie's not. Bernie's a hypocrite. He's a liar. He gave in to the establishment for a lake house in 2016. He allowed that corruption to be against him because Orange Man bad. So instead of saying, I hate Trump, I hate his policies, I hate him as a character, but at least he's someone who's getting screwed over by the establishment like me, and I'm going to fight against this establishment. Had Bernie done that, he stood a very good chance of winning in 2020. As it is, he's getting screwed over by the same corruption that he capitulated to. But these people on the left, they want, populism's growing. People are tired of the establishment. I think these people are wrong to vote for socialist policies, but I understand their frustration with the system and wanting a radical change. The truth is, when you look at Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party, there's a lot of similarities. They both are identifying the exact same corrupt type stuff. They just have a different way of how they want to go about solving it. Now, clearly, I identify more with the Tea Party, but so, we'll see. The Democrats have to walk this fine line. They got to be corrupt and keep out the progressives, but still get the progressive vote. Because they can't have Bernie win and then punish their corporate donors. But they can't just publicly tell Bernie to shove off and risk losing all the progressives. Milo, I saw you said earlier that it's going to be Biden and Harris. Yeah, there you're saying it again. I kind of disagree. I think Kamala Harris is a lock for the vice president. Absolutely, I do. She checks all the right boxes. She did everything they wanted. She's trustworthy in a corrupt way. She'll do whatever the DNC wants, whatever. She's black. She's a woman. We see white people left. They're going to pick someone that's black. They're going to want to pick someone that's a woman. So it will be Kamala Harris. Joe Biden will not be the nominee. I'm convinced. It'll be Buttigieg. It'll be Bloomberg. It'll be Hillary Clinton. It'll be Michelle Obama. Heck, it'd be Klobuchar before it'll be Biden. He's incompetent. He's losing it. I mean, the mainstream, basically, the establishment's gone all in for him. And the best he could muster was 4th place in Iowa? No. If I was Donald Trump, I would be out there this is why the impeachment's so stupid. I've said this from day one. If I was Trump, I'd be out there campaigning for Joe Biden. Biden would be one of the easiest matchups for Trump. The progressives would not come out for Biden. They will not. That's a huge wing of the party. Biden's incompetent. He'll be made to look a fool. These scandals are going to have an effect on independent voters. The corruption's going to come out. And Biden just has nothing. He's flip-flopped. He's just like, he doesn't even speak well anymore. So I just don't think, Thank you, Liberty Smith. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Hillary Clinton didn't register, but if there's a brokered convention, I mean, that's what Bloomberg's shooting for. And do you really think the Democrats will play by the rule? Oh, I'm sorry, you missed deadlines. No. I would say the most likely, I said from the get-go, and I think that I'm wrong, but I said I thought it'd be Elizabeth Warren. I thought she shot herself in the foot, though, with some strategic mistakes. Lying so blatantly. I think she PO'd a lot of the progressives that she needed. If she had continued to play buddies with Bernie, I think she would have won. But going after Bernie, I think, harmed her. We'll see if she could recover. But, out of the people that are there now, Buttigieg does have the best chance. Followed by Bernie. But they'll do everything they can to keep Bernie out. But I don't see Biden. Nope. Maybe I'm wrong, Milo. Maybe you're seeing something I'm not. But that's just my honest feeling. And if it is Biden, it's a boon to Trump because he would be an easy. Well, and that could be. There's that level of things. Who does he have connections to with the globalists? Maybe. But you don't think Buttigieg has those same type of connections? He's being groomed by them as we speak. Can you imagine Hillary being vice president? Dude, okay, let me give a word of advice to any of the Democrats right out there. If you win the nominee, don't pick Hillary Clinton as your vice president because you will be murdered within 3 days and she'll get her wish of being president. There's no way that I'm going to put Hillary Clinton in the position of, hey, you'll get ultimate power if you just eliminate me. I think I'd avoid that at all cost. But yeah, that's my feelings on what will happen. But I mean, devastating Iowa caucus. It shows the ineptitude, the corruption, the incompetence of the Democratic Party, the fact that they want total control over all of this massive government growth. It just shows the absurdity. So it is 1:15 in the a.m., and I'll probably wrap it up here. So let me make a few requests to the great supporters that are still here. Please check out the videos I do. I do these daily videos that aren't live streams. Check them out. I'm trying to keep them under 10 minutes, so to make them manageable. But I think a lot of the content you'll like. Please, if you haven't already, click the like button and subscribe. Milo was right earlier when he said, if you're like, oh, I'd really like to help Rob out, but I don't have money. More important than money to my channel at this point is growing, getting my name out there. So if you really want to help me, share me on other channels, share me on other places, and see if that can help my channel grow. But that would help me more than anything. But if you want to donate, my end of the description, you can find my Patreon and my PayPal accounts. Thank you to Dib and Milo, who are both on here, that are both patrons to me. It really does help me with the money, the equipment, and stuff that I'm trying to get, because I am broke as a joke, so it does help me get new equipment and stuff. I'm going to be getting a new background here and at my house soon. So thank you to Preacher, who's sending me a flag to hang. Hopefully you'll all see that in my videos I do later this week. Also, if you check the description of the video, you'll have my DLive account, my YouTube account, Facebook account. Maybe not. I got to put the Facebook on there. BitChute, though, and Twitch. So, and Twitter. You can check those out. Oh, Aging is voting for Yang in 2020. I mean, if I was going to vote Democrat, I would vote Yang. He does seem like someone that's against the establishment, so not a bad choice, but I'm still voting for Trump, but fair enough, you know. So, God bless, Linda. Thank you. Green screen, says Max Carter. I doubt it'll be a green screen. I've thought about it, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get one eventually. Not that it's cost prohibitive. I don't know. Sometimes it just looks weird to me, and I don't know if I have the technical wherewithal to make sure I don't have that weird halo around me while I'm doing it, but yeah, thanks. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for sharing and liking. I promise to take more calls next time. Who knows? Chances are I won't be doing a live stream tomorrow. I think I'm doing one with the Patriot Hour Thursday. Friday, as always, I have my live stream at noon, which will be just me. I'll take call-ins that whole show if that's what people like. We can talk about whatever. Going to be a lot of news after the impeachment stuff and everything that's gone on this week. So, yeah, check it out, and I'll be putting out videos tomorrow. So, thank you, everyone. Thanks to all my great supporters. I really appreciate it. And as always, I'm humbled by all of you. I really am, that choose to listen to me. It really means a lot to me. So, thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one.